across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. It's coming up 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, as you well know. And I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connection device, thank you so much for your company. Always appreciate you joining us, especially on this icy, icy day. I've had one of those mornings where, you know that advert where that woman falls and she goes, I've fallen and I can't get up. That was me on my own front path this morning because little old ladies, well, tall old ladies going out on an icy day, fell flat on my jacksie, I did, and scrabbling around like a beetle, couldn't get up. But changed into my walking boots and managed somehow to make it to the office. But be careful out there. There's me yesterday going, oh, for goodness sake, get on with it, people. Britain, for goodness sake, you don't close everything down because there's a bit of snow and ice. Well, yeah, keep going out. Just be a bit careful, not like this old lady here. But anyway, lots to talk about on the show. And as I say, whether you are listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, connected device, whichever, I'm with you live until 1 o'clock. And if you do miss anything, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, and you can hit subscribe so you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be discussing those new drink drive laws. You could be limited to under a pint under new drink driving laws, but will it make any difference to road safety? We're going to talk about, will there be British boots on the ground in Ukraine, and why the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch is calling for the West Midlands police chief to resign, be sacked over the Maccabi Tel Aviv fan ban, and why the behaviour of migrants staying in a hotel has been blamed for the closure of the 20-year-old restaurant next door. Well, it's going to probably put you off going to a restaurant, isn't it, if it's next door to an asylum hotel? Anyway, all of that coming up. Delighted to say in the next hour we're going to be talking to the former Conservative Defence Secretary Sir Ben Wallace about, well, Ukraine and Greenland and where Britain is on all of that. Get his thoughts on all that. First up, though, going to get the thoughts of my guest joining me throughout the show, as she regularly does on a Wednesday. Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, you're a proper, sensible lass, living in the countryside, and frankly, there'll be no falling over for you like a little old lady. Like a little beetle. I was like this. I was scrabbling away. I couldn't get up. I had to roll onto the grass to get up. I looked like a right Egypt.
But then that's down to your footwear. You weren't wearing.
I was wearing
boots,
trainers, but I changed into. You couldn't say I've got proper like trekking in the Andes walking boots.
Yeah.
Still almost took a tumble on the way to work, even in these.
But you have to wear proper shoes. You have to look where you're going. You have to maybe walk a little bit slower. Don't rush.
Yep.
And I've got some grit that I put down outside.
Now this is the thing. There's quite a big fuss about councils not gritting roads. Now I'm like down a side road. I'm not expecting it to be gritted. Although weirdly, you don't need to grit the main roads because they're the ones that the cars are on all the time. And but you live out in country way, so you've got. You got full on snow, or
we did have it. It went yesterday when we had some rain yesterday evening, but for a week it's been absolutely frozen. But the local farmers give us a hand if there's really heavy snow. So big up to the farmers. That's why I'm a big fan.
Because they don't stop.
They don't stop, and a bit of snow isn't going to stop a tractor. So they come out and give us a hand, and the local community gets together.
Can I say, I'd love to have a tractor. By the way, farmers are heading off to Brussels today. I believe in. Yeah, they love it. They're totally those farmers. You've got to love it. They've got what we don't have on enough of our roads. They've got grit. That's the key thing. Anyway, so much to talk about today. Question I'm going to put to the audience today, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, first of all, is about the new drink driving limit. It's been proposed, consultation. By the way, when governments do consultation, it means they're going to do it. They're just playing along, and but the government plans to slash the drink driving limit to basically, well, for most people, because this is where it's really complicated. It's different for different people, how big you are, if you're a man or a woman, etc., to under 1 pint, which they claim is going to improve road safety. I want to know what your reaction is to that. Lots of concern about, country pubs basically closing down. A lot of people pointing out, is this really going to make a difference? We're going to get to everyone's thoughts on that. I'd love to hear yours. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls, as you know, all together now are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Claire, you live in the countryside. Now, I can walk to my local pub or I can get an Uber, okay? And I have to say, I never drink drive. I'm not a good enough driver to ever drink drive and think, no, I'm incomplete. I need all of my faculties. I would have like a glass of Prosecco. I'm a Prosecco what can I say? I'd have a glass of Prosecco maybe at the beginning of a meal.
Yeah.
And that would be it. And then I would consider driving 2 hours later. I just don't want to take the risk. I've sat in, as a news reporter, I sat in coroner's court too many times with grieving families after drunk drivers, and I don't know why that just, I mean, like seatbelts, not drink driving, and that is absolutely ingrained in my brain not to do that. But we're talking about taking this limit. Again, it's meaningless to most of us, slashing the limit from 35 micrograms of alcohol per 100 millilitres of breath to 22 micrograms, bringing it in line with Scotland and actually quite a lot of Europe. We have much lower drink driving laws. Means utterly nothing to most people, but currently you can drink, basically, if you're a man, probably women, again, you get less, 2 pints, which is a heck of a lot of booze, by the way. That's 4 units, isn't it, effectively? Yeah. You can drink 2 pints and not be over the limit, just. This is going to limit it to probably under 1 pint. What do you think of it?
Well, I'm not a fan of drink driving, and I've seen too many cars in hedges and on their roofs, on country lanes, to see the damage that it does. But you also wonder, those people who are going to drink drive are not going to pay attention to the government changing any limits whatsoever. And who is going to police this? It's all very well to say this is going to be the legal level, but if you don't have police out there, well, you're still going to get people drink driving. But what about the people that get caught if they've just had a pint and a half, but it's somehow their body has not dealt with it as quickly as the next person, the alcohol level was higher than they thought it was going to be. We all know what that's like with wines and beers. Sometimes the alcohol level is higher.
I mean, sometimes you can have a glass of wine and it absolutely, you think, oh, whew, you know, because it's on empty stomach, and you know, and then sometimes you think you don't feel affected. But it's amazing how many people say, oh, I'm just as good a driver. In fact, I think I'm a better driver. No offence, men over 65. You know, a lot of people in my family, they'll be like thinking they're absolutely fine on that, but actually, you know, they are impaired. And when they do those studies, and these particularly men, I think it is, you know, no offence, boys, but that sort of bravado of like, no, I'm absolutely fine. And then when they actually do them tests on their reaction times, they're massively slow. They just don't realise it. But here's the thing: we have seen, and there's an amazing graph you can actually see from 1970 to you know, basically, you know, 2022, I think. The latest figures, 2024, road deaths in the United Kingdom have fallen by how much? 3/4.
Whoa!
Absolutely plummeted. Now, a lot of that was things like the technology. So, you know, things like, you know, seatbelt laws, better technology, better braking, the drink driving laws as well, and all that, you know, and stricter tests and all that. So there have been other things, but car technology has massively improved. I mean, my car, you know, I've got a bog standard car, but, you know, if you come too close, you're at a higher speed, that car will start putting the brakes on for you. So things have improved. And again, I think a lot of it is things like, you know, cars not bursting into fire, although it turns out these hybrid cars apparently a bit of a high risk, far more likely to be involved in high fatal fires. But the thing is, drink driving is really, really small small implication in terms of the number of road accidents. I mean, mostly it's basically someone not looking properly. That's the main. About half of all accidents are down to basically they haven't looked. Either the driver or a pedestrian hasn't looked properly. Then you've got basically a bit of road rage, people being reckless, or then you've got speed. And then you've got someone sort of making a poor turn, and speeding. Next one down. Then alcohol, it's below speeding. I mean, but it's a tiny, it's like 8% of all cases. So this isn't going to have a massive impact.
Well, it's not, and it never really is about public safety on the roads, is it, with the government? I mean, they are a nanny state as it is, so they're just looking for further ways to curb it. No, of course it's not going to be good enough for them. But the biggest thing that hits the pub trade, especially in rural areas, are all the taxes that the Labour government are putting on them.
But also, people are saying, like, I can't drive to the pub, I can't even have a pint. Like, all the mates going to have drunk, I'm the designated driver, I can't even have a pint and be sure I'm not going to get done for drink driving. But also, if you look in most of Europe, I mean, there's you know, they have a higher fatality rate on their roads, despite having, you know, basically 1 unit limit. And Chris Snowdon, a big favourite of the show, the Institute of Economic Affairs, he's pointed out that in Scotland they cut their limit to what England and Wales are proposing to do, and there's been no reduction in accidents.
No, we need to look at how people are driving, why they're driving so fast. So I agree with some of the rules around younger drivers because they are the ones responsible for more of the incidents.
Yeah, indeed. Well, that's the thing. I mean, also mostly when you're talking about drink driving incidents, it's people who are smashed out of their skulls.
Yes.
It's not someone who's had, 2 glasses of wine at lunch. It just isn't. I would say don't drink and drive. I think I personally think that's a pretty good simple rule to stick by. What do you think about the rules, though, affecting younger and older people? Because 70-year-olds plus, you're going to require to take an eye test every 3 years. And we know, I remember speaking to Edmund King about this from the RSC, from the AA, I think he said, that basically over 80, the accident rate just goes sky high, even though they're all driving at 20 miles per hour. But actually, eyesight, reaction time, But new drivers, learner drivers are going to have to wait 6 months between getting their theory test passed and then being allowed to have a test to actually. But there's no point having a law about that. That's literally what's happening right now. Anyway, you can't get. My daughter had to wait almost a year between getting her theory. You're not allowed to apply for your practical test until you pass your theory, and there was a 6-week wait for the theory test, and that was travelling to the other side of the city to get it.
And we're going through exactly the same thing with my son at the moment. He booked his theory test, so that's all in, but by the time he gets to be able to book a driving test, it's going to be towards the end of the year, where he'll be another year older, but he'll get experience on the road. I'm quite happy that he has more time out on the road. I think he's realised it isn't quite as easy as he thought. Country lanes, in the rain, you need to look at all of these things, and he's had the whole lot thrown at him: ice, snow, rain.
That's true. But again, you don't live in a city. Well, again, a lot of these policies are made by people, these young Egypts who cycle to work. They have no idea about how most people live their lives, where a car is absolutely vital to get to work, even to get to college. It's not a luxury item. Like, let's have a second hybrid car. Sod off. A car is an absolute necessity for life. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Should we talk international affairs?
Yes.
You come from a military family.
I did.
Britain and France both signed a declaration committing to deploying troops to Ukraine as part of a potential peace deal. Basically, peacekeeping troops only once hostilities have ended. But President Trump has also agreed to defend Kyiv in the event of a future attack by Russia. It's the most hopeful we've seen in terms of getting close to some sort of ceasefire and some sort of deal. Putin has made it really clear he will not accept any NATO troops of any sort on Ukrainian territory. I mean, personally, again, what's he going to do about it if it was US troops? Really, you and whose army, Putin, realistically. But, I mean, again, you could say that to Britain as well. You and whose army? Have we got any troops to actually send to Ukraine?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? We don't have enough troops, we don't have enough equipment, we're trying to recruit people all the time, and there is that small fact as, are we going to ever get this off the ground? Because Putin, as we know, will come to the negotiating table and just go, no, I don't agree to it. So you had all of the coalition of the willing yesterday, and we saw that lovely press conference. And
so much hugging.
There was a lot of hugging.
So much clenching of hands. And,
but didn't they just remind you of the sort of group of nerds who've been working on a school project? And they came and did their presentation and said, look, this is what we've done. That's how it felt. Here is our statement of intention. Well, that's nice. It doesn't work
Europe
like this.
is really good at having meetings and making statements and signing declarations. What we're not good at is backing it up with cold, hard steel and boots on the ground. At the end of the day, you can talk the talk as much as you want. If you can't walk the walk, if you're not both able and willing, and by the way, if you're not, being willing doesn't really matter if you actually haven't got the men to put on the ground and you haven't got the actual, the hardware. And we really don't have it. And we're going to be talking to Sir Ben Wallace, former Tory Defence Secretary, who spent a lot of time both behind the scenes and actually pretty openly when he was in office and since leaving office, one of the many figures either in politics or in the military saying, for the love of God, we've got to beef up our defences. At the end of the day, it's like everyone's talking the talk over, that joint declaration as well we had over Greenland, where pretty much all the leaders, Spain, Italy, Spain, Who gives two hoots? I mean, Spain. Oh, you've pulled out of Eurovision because you don't like Israel because you've been run by a bunch of anti-Semites for decades. I mean, who cares what Spain thinks about anything at all? You haven't got an army worth caring about. But, I mean, this is the thing. But all these declarations that the future of Greenland should be up to the people of Greenland. What are you going to do about it? We're going to do nothing. We haven't got any power to do anything about it.
And Greenland's one of those territories that it could be extremely wealthy, but the Greenlanders don't actually know what to do with the natural resources that they have. They've not been able to exploit it.
Well, it's a bunch of Inuit fishermen.
Precisely. So, if they want somebody to come along, I'm willing to put on my hiking boots.
The Chinese have offered, and the US
they'd rather
blocked
have
that.
me. Yeah. I'd go out there. But
would you go and live there? I don't care how rich I was if I had to. I wouldn't want to live in Greenland. Well, it's not green. That's a lie.
No, it's not. I mean, there's a lot of puffins out there, aren't there? And sort of nice territories to look at. So it looks pretty. I like it.
I mean, it's a weekend, isn't it?
A weekend.
It's a weekend. It's a weekend.
Well,
trip.
job share, if you like.
Not, yeah.
But do we think that Trump's actually going to do it? Because I'm not sure. He does chop and change his mind an awful lot of times. And you do think, is this getting everybody together and actually doing what Europe needs to do? Is look at their defence, look at their spending and be much better. Isn't that the intention all the way through from Trump?
Well, who knows? I mean, there's no doubt at all. I mean, reading up on this, again, we're all trying to be experts on Venezuela and Greenland now. I mean, Greenland does have the most extraordinary amount of natural resources in terms of these absolutely crucial minerals. About 30 of the 50 crucial minerals that are needed for computing, phones, cars, all that. They've got them, but they're not mining them because they're just not geared up to it. They've got a population of 56,000. I mean, and half of them are Inuit fishermen. I mean, I'm sorry, but that reality, they're not getting it done. But they've also, it is strategically very important. There are already American naval bases. We had Tom Tugendhat on the show yesterday pointing out America's already got naval bases there. They are allowed under a World War II treaty to put their naval bases pretty much anywhere they want on Greenland as part of the deal for helping Europe during the war. And this Arctic route, now we've got this Arctic route that is basically not frozen over all the year round, is going to be more and more crucial. And the Chinese and the Russians are sniffing around, and it's a strategic concern. Here's the thing, Trump, I mean, this is a country that's part of Denmark, but they're actually entitled to declare independence if they want. If he offered every single Icelander like $10 million, which is a lot cheaper than any military, $10 million, and we get to control your country. Although it can't be, I don't think it can't become a 51st state, but it will. We seize control of your country in terms of military and strategy. I mean, would you say no? I want to be ruled by Denmark, not America, in return for $10 million? Come on.
Well, of course, because the Greenlanders don't necessarily want to be ruled by Denmark either. They're always looking at the independence route of it.
But would you? I mean, again,
who would you rather have?
I'm into national sovereignty, but how rewarding a life is being an Inuit fisherman?
Well, who are we to say? That's the thing. We all think that we know.
Be up to them.
It has to be
I don't think he should seize it militarily. I think that'd be outrageous.
No, I think that's wrong.
But what are we going to do about it if he does?
But Keir Starmer's going to write a very angry letter, isn't he?
He's going to make a very strict speech, and then he's going to backtrack on the speech within 2 days.
Can you imagine?
That's pretty much what he'll do. If it's usual form.
He'll be very concerned. He'll be cross.
He'll be. You wouldn't want to see me cross, says Keir Starmer. Can you imagine? By the way, just some breaking news. We've had a press conference. Most days there's a press conference about 10 o'clock from the Reform Party these days. Nigel Farage has announced that Layla Cunningham, regular here on the show, has been announced as Reform UK's candidate for the Mayor of London next year. She's also going to be the head of Reform UK in London and be the face of their local election campaign in May. Big fan of Layla Cunningham as a guest on the show. She knows the stuff. She's a very good communicator, and again, I hate all this nonsense about you need to have a woman, you need to have a woman. But it is good for them to have a wider variety of faces, as a party. And she's a serious player, I think.
She is, and she is very good debating. She's got a lot of points that she needs to make. I think that she will get better as well with time. I remember when she first started, when she was just a Westminster councillor for the Tories, and I knew her, and to see her now, completely different character. So she's done a lot of work.
We're all trying to improve. I'm hoping at some point in my career I'll improve.
Well, when I grow up, I hope I will.
When I grow up, I hope to be a radio presenter.
But I think that they can do a lot worse than her. I really do. I think she'll be great as
I love the way that was so mealy-mouthed as a Conservative.
Thank you. I can't be too careful, can I?
I reckon you, as a Conservative, I reckon you probably agree with her on virtually every single policy.
There's an awful lot I do agree with her.
Do you see, I mean, no, it's a different story from regular main stories today, but do you think there will be either a pact before or after a general election between the two parties?
No, I don't. I really don't.
I think definitely not before, because I think that would kill both parties.
No, it would kill both parties.
But I think after. The idea that you guys wouldn't go into coalition together is a
I think it depends.
Of course you would.
It depends who the characters are involved.
Who would be leader?
Who will be leader? Because that's your problem, isn't it? You've got a bunch of egos going up with another bunch of egos, and then you have to decide who's going to do it. It didn't work well with the Liberal Democrats, and they're all for fairness.
Well, the Lib Dem didn't work well out for them in terms of the... I was the view. I rather liked the Tory Lib Dem coalition.
So did I.
And the only thing I didn't like about it is we didn't get that Brexit referendum.
Yes,
But that's a good thing, because we wouldn't have won it then, because it was what happened in 2015 that helped us win the 2016. So it worked out very well for me.
Precisely, but we were able to put them into positions that we wanted them to have, rather than the ones that they wanted to have. So I think that they probably tell a very different story.
But it worked out pretty well for Nick Clegg.
Oh,
what's his
not
house worth now?
Is
I mean, he must have about 100 million quid. I mean, goodness me. But anyway, just one final story I want to talk to you about in this hour, and that is Kemi Badenoch calling for the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police to be sacked. That's Craig Guildford. We were talking about him on the show earlier this week after the banning of those Israeli football fans, the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, from that Europa League match against Aston Villa in early November. I mean, she said his position was untenable. There's, extraordinary evidence. I mean, it was like the Keystone Cops appearing at the Home Affairs Select Committee yesterday. I couldn't believe how gently they were probed, but basically just admitting that, I mean, again, I think we need to be honest and use the words that actually are accurate. They lied. They lied and they lied and they lied. They made up a reason completely spurious reasons to ban these Israeli Jewish football fans from Birmingham for a football match. They lied about what Amsterdam police told them about a previous event. They've lied about speaking to Jewish community leaders. They've lied about what evidence they had and when, and every single thing. They've lied to Parliament about it. It's untenable that any of these people could keep their jobs, but particularly this guy. And I find it extraordinary these people haven't already just been told, you are out. The Home Secretary has the power to do this.
Yes, she does.
But the key thing here is that we are talking about police bending over backwards. And I mean, I would say at this point, bending over forwards and pulling their trousers down at this point, to basically placate local Islamist, I'm not going to say Islamist, community leaders. Dangerous, extremist Muslims, full of anti-Semitism, self-appointed community leaders, imams in mosques where they've actually preached outrageous hatred against the West and against Jews, basically saying, we don't want a load of Jews and Israelis coming to this city, and we're going to kick up, and there's going to be violence if you don't ban them, come up with an excuse. And instead of the police saying, we'll arrest the hell out of you, don't you dare make threats like that. Instead, the police went, oh, what would you like us to do? We'll make up an excuse and we'll basically ban people from freely coming to watch a football match. Simply, let's face it, because they are Jewish. Every single police officer involved in that decision should be sacked on the spot, not just the Chief Constable, in my view. And we need to round up and arrest, and we need to prosecute those who made those threats.
Yeah, we absolutely do. I mean, this is the most ridiculous set of circumstances for a police force to find themselves in. They're there to uphold the law. They're not there to make the political decisions that they clearly are. And I would also like to put every member of Parliament who said that it was the right decision to also be named and shamed.
Yeah.
I really do, because look at the evidence, and it was really damning, everything that they basically had wrong.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you just think, how can you then defend that and say it was the right decision?
But
what about the Jewish community's safety? That wasn't taken into account at all.
But also, crucially, if they lie about this, what else do they lie about?
Yeah.
We've had enough scandals over the police in recent years. How on earth can we trust that these people are upholding the law on behalf of the public in a fair-minded, unbiased way if this is what they do? This is blatant lying, and then cover-up of lying, and then lying about lying, and then justifying lying.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry, you cannot be a chief constable of the police when you've done that.
Precisely, because
I don't want you lying about what coffee you ordered. I want you to be whiter than white. Are we allowed to say that anymore? But I want you to be whiter than white.
But also that attitude then feeds down from the top into the lower ranks, and you're working on the street policeman or policewoman is going to be looking at it saying, but it's all right because we've been told that we can get away with this. And that's how it breeds.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to know why people are freeing, and again, by the way, again, we know we say, we talk an awful lot about Israel and Jews. Sorry, the people who hate the Jews, the Islamist anti-Semites, they also hate anyone who's not even just not a Muslim, but anyone even who doesn't even sign up to their version of, let's say, it's not a version of Islam that's incorrect. I mean, if you actually read the Quran, it's a very accurate version of the Quran, but should we say it's very Old Testament rather than New Testament when it comes to, if you're going to compare it with the Bible. They hate all of us, okay? People need to get to grips with this, and I'm sorry, this is exactly what the government and the police need to get to grips with, and they certainly shouldn't be doing the bidding of Islamist, hate mongers in the Midlands. I mean, Birmingham is where I was born. I mean, the idea that's a no-go city for people because of their faith is outrageous. Chief Constable Craig Guilford, you need to go. 10:28 is the time. Love to hear your thoughts on all the big stories we're talking about, whether it's the Maccabi Tel Aviv match. And I can't believe it's still a story all these months on. Leda Cunningham becoming the Reform mayoral candidate for London. What do you make of that? Love to hear your thoughts on putting troops on the ground in Ukraine, seizing of Greenland. Maybe why don't we seize Greenland? We could do that with what army? But particularly I want to hear from you on those changes to the drink drive laws. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is indeed Talk. 10:31 is the time. Let's go straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. A lot of you getting in touch about those drink driving laws. Kevin is in Chester. Hello, Kevin. What do you make of them?
Oh, good morning, Julia. Morning, and morning to the drink driving laws. Well, I have been driving for 60 years, since I was 17 years old. Yep. And when many years ago, I did drink and drive, like probably many of us did, actually, within limits. But I haven't been drinking and driving for many years now, because the simple fact is that if something happens, a child runs out or somebody falls off a bike or something like that, I want to be able to hit my brake pedal within a second.
So it's your reaction time?
quick reaction time, and it will affect your reaction
So
time.
you support the change in the law?
I do, actually.
Even though actually drink driving is actually much less common, it's certainly social. I mean, if someone gets done for speeding, people are always like, "Oh, what are you doing? 34 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone." But if someone's to be done for drink driving, I mean, you would definitely be very critical of that, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, you would. I would, yeah, definitely. The thing about the drink driving thing is when, in 1 second, a car, if you're doing 30 mile an hour, in 1 second, a car moves forward 44 feet.
Yeah.
Right. So if you go to 60 mile an hour, it moves forward 88 feet in that one.
So that makes a massive difference. But that's a speed issue. But for most accidents, it's got nothing to do with speeding or drink driving. Drink driving is a tiny factor, and in most of those cases, these are people who are absolutely sloshed. They haven't just had 2 pints. So do you think it'll make a difference?
No, I do agree. I think probably setting the limit too low is no. I'm going to sorry, Julia. My feelings are firm on this.
Just don't drink drive.
It's no drink, because another thing is it takes the pressure off the driver, because you're driving home and you've had 2 pints, and all of a sudden the police car's at the back of you and you're starting, oh hell, if he pulls me up, And
I'm excited you live somewhere where there might actually be police on the roads.
Well, that'd be interesting. Really. We do. I live in Chester, and there are quite a few.
Oh, right. Well, there you are then. Kevin, no, I understand. I'm with you. I don't drink drive. Would never dream of doing it. I think it's absolutely crazy. I think it's an abomination if people do. But again, is someone, regular driver, can you go to the local pub and have a pint? Who knows? Kevin, thank you for that. Let's get Alison on the line in Halifax. Alison, where are you on this new drink drive law proposal?
Well, can't we adopt? I lived in California for years. My children are US citizens. They got their driving licenses at 16, Julia, but they were restricted. They were not allowed to carry passengers.
Yeah.
They were not allowed to be on the road after a certain time at night.
Yeah.
But it was cheap, and it made it easier for people to get on the road.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we know that young people, particularly young men,
designated drivers were given free drinks. They were given free Cokes. They were given. Yeah. They were encouraged. I mean, I don't think anyone drinks a pint of and wants to drive. I mean, who does that?
I know lots of people who do that. I wouldn't do it. Genuinely, I wouldn't do it.
Oh, if I'm going to drink, I drink in the house, and I don't want to be on the road.
I just think there's drinking and there's driving. They just don't mix at all. But you think, what do you think about the restriction on, for instance, young people having to wait 6 months between passing their theory test before they can get a driving test?
I think it's dreadful. They do, in the States, they do driver's education in classes at school, and they do their thing. But yes, when they get a driving licence at 16, it's not what we have. They can't go on motorways. They can't do this.
Yeah.
They're restricted.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why they're making it so difficult for young people to just... Some people have to drive, as you say,
exactly.
Julia. They have... I mean, we'd love to be green, but who has this marvellous public transport that they talk about these days?
I don't even want to be green. I just want people to be able to get around easily. Alison, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, going to talk about all the big stories with the brilliant Brendan O'Neill from Spiked Online. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile. and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. It's 10:36. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Delighted to welcome my next guest, Brendan O'Neill, chief political writer at Spiked Online, to the show. A very good morning to you.
Hi, Julia. How you doing?
Very well indeed. Thank you so much for joining us. Lots to talk about. Let's start with where we are in terms of Ukraine, because the UK and France have signed a treaty, basically a document, promising they would commit to deploying peacekeeping troops on the ground, boots on the ground in Ukraine, in the event, and it's a big if really, if there is actually a ceasefire in Ukraine. What do you make of that promise?
I'm not sure about this. I mean, firstly, I'm not sure that it's actually going to happen, because Britain and France and Europe have not really stepped up to the mark when it comes to supporting Ukraine with what it needs. And it has needed a lot over the past 3 years, because it was criminally invaded by the imperial aggressor of Russia. And Europe too often let Ukraine down. And Zelensky and others have made that point. There's also the question of whether British and French troops want to be drawn into another war zone. You know, do we really want to be keeping the peace on that crucial border between Russia and Europe? I am fully supportive of Ukrainian self-determination. I want Russia the hell out of that country, but I'm really not sure about European troops putting their boot on the ground. I think that could potentially up the ante even more.
Well, there's no doubt at all. Putin has made it very clear, under no circumstances will he accept any NATO troops to the ground. The question is what he would be able to do about it if, and that's the big hope from this meeting in Paris, with a lot of sort of bromancy handshakes and hugs with Zelensky, but having Witkoff there and having Jared Kushner there as well, the two people who are probably closest to the president when it comes to international affairs, his sort of negotiators in the Middle East and over Ukraine, they seem to be moving some way towards the possibility of America giving some sort of backstop supporting. So it's all very well, Putin can talk the talk, but Putin ain't going to be attacking French and British troops if he knows that America is going to launch airstrikes if he does. I mean, Putin ain't going to take on the might of the Americans.
Well, that's the thing. You know, if we get some form of American backstop, then it might be more reasonable for European troops to assist in what happens post-war. But that shows that Europe is still, for all its anti-American posturing that it sometimes engages in, Europe is still very reliant on America, which is what makes all the other stuff going on right now, Venezuela, Greenland, and all the rest of it. That's what makes that really worrying, because there is a huge gap opening up between America and Europe. And I think European leaders are on a hiding to nothing if they don't realise how serious it is if they lose the support of America. Yeah,
and indeed, and that's been the big worry about Trump pulling out of NATO and all the talk about upping the amount of money and the percentage of their GDP that European countries are spending on their NATO defence commitments. You know, it's all very well, but it ain't coming very quick. I mean, Germany's the only country that's actually upping it properly, but they're coming from a very low base over the last post-war years. Let's talk about Venezuela, because it has been, I mean, quite bizarre to watch what's happening since Saturday. The handing in of the Free Palestine flags and the Free Maduro flags being handed out to the usual suspects. The amount of people on the left, the Jeremy Corbyns, the others, who are cheering on the likes of Maduro. Isn't socialism wonderful? Isn't it fantastic? And then when it all went, let's face it, technical term, tits up there, and people are starving in the streets, having to eat their own pets, haven't got running water or electricity, and 8 million plus people leave the country just to survive. They started going a bit quiet, but now they're all big fans of Maduro.
You know, I have enjoyed watching them all kind of hand in their kafirs and take their Venezuela flags, you know, just switching from one cause to the next. You know, the poor people of Gaza are now not going to have support at all. I bet you they won't even talk about Gaza for the foreseeable future. They will no doubt come back to it because they have that unhinged hatred of Israel. But for the time being, they've just moved on. You know, it really demonstrates that so much of what passes for left-wing politics now is really just anti-Westernism. They just hate the West. They will take the side of whatever group of people they think is the most anti-West. And that might be Hamas one week, and it might be Maduro and his socialist goons the next week. That's really their driving force. Which element is most anti-West and therefore will throw our lot behind them? You know what's so striking to me is that not only are the people of Venezuela cheering, lots of people in Venezuela are cheering the ousting of Maduro, but we also right now have one of the bravest uprisings that we've seen in a long time in Iran, where young men and women are fighting for their freedom against the Islamic theocracy that rules over them, and the left is saying nothing about that. They're all for liberation, so-called, in Maduro's regime, but not in places like Iran, because their judgment is always which side hates the West, we'll join it.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing. When you look at what Maduro's been doing, and I've talked about this actually with a fantastic guest we had on the show on Monday, who's a Venezuelan exile living in America and is an economist, about, you know, how little in the media in the West there has been actually about, not just before, but even since, why Maduro is such an awful, horrific creature. And by the way, the woman, the vice president who's taken over, and Maduro's wife, by the way, worse, you know, not even just as bad, worse than him. He's just a bit of a fool, frankly. But I mean, we're talking about, you know, the torturing, the imprisonment, the executions, extrajudicial executions of opposition people and journalists. You know, they're all up in arms about, you know, Khashoggi. But not that bothered when it happens in Venezuela. But the drug running, the working with the likes of Iran, Russia, China, to basically, you know, provide, you know, money launder, gate arms for Hezbollah to launch terror attacks. I mean, you know, this is I think it's what Donald Trump would call a bad hombre. I think is what he would call him. But it is extraordinary in terms of the West's reaction, and particularly our Prime Minister Keir Starmer's reaction. Did you have a scintilla of sympathy for him, having to basically walk the walk of Mr. Human Rights, Mr. International Law obsessed, man of virtue on the left, having to basically not criticise Donald Trump too much?
I had a tiny bit of sympathy for him, I have to say, because he is in a real bind, because he loves to ponce around the world as the boss man of human rights, you know, the white savior of all these kind of oppressed people. That's the image he's had of himself for a long time. Uphold international law, that very stiff kind of, you know, weird approach to the global affairs that people like him have. And now he can't say that. He can't say that because he's got to keep sweet with Trump and the White House, which I think we do have to keep with them, by the way. So he's in a tricky situation. But you know what's really getting on my wick is all these people in Britain and Europe, all these leftists and liberals who are suddenly overnight interested in the issue of sovereignty. They're all talking about Venezuelan sovereignty and Trump's criminal violation of it. These are the same people who tried to stop Brexit. These are the same people who love the European Union, which is designed to undermine European sovereignty. These are the same people who love the ECHR, which waters down our borders and overrules our politicians. These are the same people who turn a blind eye to the erosion of Britain's borders and the crossing of the channel of hundreds of young men every day. They don't give a damn about sovereignty. So I think that hypocrisy that we're seeing is really coming to the fore.
And so unusual from the left, so unusual. In terms of Greenland, where are you on Greenland? Because again, we had strong statements from the Coalition of the Willing meeting in Paris yesterday, although I'm not quite sure we care what Spain thinks of anything. I mean, you and whose army? But you can say that about Britain as well. They're saying, you know, the future of Greenland should be up to the people of Greenland. Well, by all accounts, most of the people of Greenland are rather unhappy about being a colony of Denmark. We're talking about 56,000 people. Only about half of those are actually Greenland natives. You know, Donald Trump is in official White House statements, not just his off-the-cuff remarks on aeroplanes to journalists, is still talking about, you know, taking Greenland, whether by military means or otherwise. Realistically, if Donald Trump does decide to do this, or whether he decides to, you know, just pay $10 million to each Greenlander and say, you know, here's the payment, do you want to accept the payment and vote to, you know, to let us be in control? But if whatever he does decide to do, there isn't anything that the European leaders can actually do, is there?
Nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. It's really going to highlight their impotence on the global stage. You know, Europe is a knackered old power. Europe used to rule the world, and it doesn't anymore. Things have changed enormously. There's now America coming back to the fore. There's China, there's India, Russia. You know, Europe is really on the back foot on so many of these issues. You know, my view, the democratically elected Prime Minister of Greenland has said he doesn't want the country to be annexed by Trump. For me, that's it. That's discussion over, because I believe in democracy and I believe in sovereignty. Having said that, loads of Greenlandic people do not want to be associated with Denmark anymore. I think they would be better off having a close relationship with America. So if Trump, instead of the bluster, what I think Trump should do is try to convince the Greenlandic government to have a referendum, convince the people that they'd be better off closer to the United States, which I think they would be, and do it in that democratic way. And that would really shove it to Europe, because then they wouldn't have anything to moan about.
Yeah, also, it's extraordinary they're sitting on all these rare earth minerals and are not exploiting them, and frankly, all being rich. I think it's madness, isn't it? Now, listen, we've spoken to you many times about the issue of Israel and anti-Semitism, both at home and abroad, and you're the author of the brilliant book, After the Pogrom, 7th of October, Israel and the Crisis of Civilizations. I do want to get your thoughts also on this extraordinary ongoing row about the decision by the West Midlands Police in Birmingham to basically ban Israeli football fans from that Maccabi Tel Aviv Aston Villa match in early November. We've seen the West Midlands Police Chief, Craig Guilford, has now got a call from the leader of the Tories, Jeremy Badenoch, that he has to be sacked because he and basically his henchmen, they basically lied and lied again about the reasons for banning basically Israeli Jews from Birmingham, and they basically kowtowed to Islamist fundamentalist threats from local self-appointed community leaders in Birmingham and extremist imams, basically saying we don't want Jews in our city. What do you make of this story?
I think this is one of the worst police scandals in decades. Yep. It really is very serious indeed. And I would say it's a police racism scandal, actually, because if they had behaved like this in relation to any other minority in this country, the left would be up in arms, the anti-war movement the anti-racism movement would be on the streets. We know why they're not, because the minority in question is Jews and they don't care about Jews. But what West Midlands Police did is extraordinary. They were given information that local Islamist mobs were intending to arm themselves in order to attack these Jews from Israel. They suppressed that information and instead they banned the Jews. Yep. So they got information that Jews might be attacked, and their solution to that was to ban Jews. And they capitulated entirely to the Islamist mob. They did its bidding. They made Villa Park a Jew-free zone, which is what those armed anti-Semites were effectively demanding. Yep. They did the bidding of a racist mob of Jew haters. You can't get more serious than that. And then they suppressed information. They lied about it. They covered it up. They put certain things into the public realm and hid other things. You know, not only is the police chief's position untenable, the ideology of multiculturalism is now untenable, because this is the sectarianism that it gives rise to. Exactly. And I think everyone can now see what a poisonous ideology this is.
Absolutely. Chief political writer at Spiked Online, Brendan O'Neill, always good to hear from you. Thank you so much. Quick response to that particular story from Claire Pearsall, who's still with me in the studio.
Yeah, I mean, the police story is just beggars belief, really, doesn't it, that these people are allowed to hold those positions, to keep going and ignore the Jewish community. I mean, what more do these people have to do? Many more times do they have to say they feel unsafe?
I just simply don't understand. Well, how is this guy still in a job? How is he still in a... He's obviously got something on someone, because he's still in a job today, honestly. Anyway, up next, going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be hearing from Nick Freeman, the motoring lawyer, on those new drink drive laws that are being proposed. Find out what he thinks. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:51 is the time. Let's talk about those new drink driving laws. A lot of you getting in touch about the government's plans. They're doing a consultation. That means they're going to do it. Who are we kidding? To basically slash the drink driving limit to basically under 1 pint for most people. They claim it's going to improve road safety. They are also going to insist that over 70s get a eye test every 3 years. And if you fail it, you're automatically banned from driving. And also 6 month wait between passing your theory test if you're a youngster doing your test and getting your practical test. Even though, of course, actually that's already shorter than the waits in many parts of the country right now. Let's talk about all of that with Nick Freeman. He's a motoring lawyer and road safety campaigner. Good morning to you, Nick.
Morning, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. First of all, let's talk about the drink driving laws. We are talking about bringing our laws into line with more closely to Scotland and closer to where we are in most of Europe. Will that mean that we've got safer roads?
In theory, yes. At the moment, we have actually the highest level. There is no level anywhere in the world that's higher than the UK. There are other countries that have the same level. And to put that into perspective, at the current level, you are 4 times more likely to have an accident and 6 times more likely to be killed or have a serious injury. So a reduction is well overdue. We've been petitioning the government for many years, this government and the last government. So on the face of it, it's a no-brainer. But of course, doing that by itself in an age of robotical policing leaves a piece of the jigsaw missing. And what we need officers on the roads to enforce it. Okay. And we also need some education, because the under 30s have a very cavalier attitude to drink driving because they've been brought up with robotical policing. They've not had the experience of that.
I've got to be honest. My experience actually, it's the over 60s who've got that attitude rather than the other way around. Here's the thing, though: Scotland's reduced their drink driving limit. They haven't seen any reduction in accidents. There's a higher accident rate on the continent of Europe, where most of those countries have got a pretty much close to zero drink driving limit. Most problems, most accidents, and certainly fatal accidents that are caused when there's drink involved, we're talking about people who are smashed out of their skulls. They've not had 2 pints. They've had 20 pints.
Well, look, there are all sorts of problems you raise. First of all, in Europe, many of the speed limits are faster than here. So drink is one aspect of very bad driving, but there are other aspects as well. And enforceability, in my view, is a huge problem.
That's the key thing. Do you think you're going to get caught?
And certainly, I think the over 60s and the under 30s have an attitude which suggests, no, nowadays it's worth the risk. And that really, so we need to re-stigmatise it. We need education. People need to be aware by an advertising campaign, by messages from the government and from law enforcement agencies, the problem, the tragedies that it causes when you're over the limit. Even if there's no accident, you get done for drink driving, you lose your licence for at least 12 months. Your insurance premiums
people don't
rocket.
though. I know someone who genuinely got caught 3. this is not someone I am friends with. I would not be friends with someone who did this 3 times. And it was only on the 3rd time they lost their licence, didn't go to prison. My view is 2nd time, absolutely you're going to prison. 1st time you lose your licence. I think it should be very clear. Look, most people don't think they're going to be caught. Most people, let's face it, they think, I hear this again and again from people, I'm just as good a driver, if not better, when I've had a couple of drinks. Now, we know there have been tests after tests after tests that have shown people think their reaction time isn't different, but it is. One of the things that most affected me was I was a news reporter in a local paper, Newsstand, and every Tuesday I was sitting coroner's court, and there's only so many families you can see grieving their child who's been killed in an accident. I often no seatbelt. People, I won't get it. Everyone's putting their seatbelts on. We are not discussing this. Nothing to discuss whatsoever. But the drink driving as well.
Well, also on drug driving, because, there's a problem with drink driving in this country, but drug driving is far, far worse. And it's just not touched. It literally is not touched. No. And it's proven when the government has a campaign at Christmas and everyone knows the police are going to be out on the roads, and look at how many people they actually catch. There are loads. So you imagine if there were police on the roads, we need to extend the power of the police to do random tests. At the moment, they can only test for drink and drugs under very limited circumstances. We need to get rid of that and give the police the power they need, because it costs a lot of money to waste tests. So if they target people, target places, I know people are going to moan, well, it's what about my rights, etc., etc. But to make the roads safer, a lower limit, and enforce it and educate. And we're moving in the right direction.
What about the concerns of people about, the local pubs, particularly in the countryside, where someone wants, they can have at least, right now they can have, a pint or 2 pints, they're just driving, distance down the road, but then they'd be breaking the law. And lots of those pubs will just say, we've lost a load from the smoking ban, lost a load from all the issues with lockdown, the cost of a pint, and, compared to drinking from the supermarket, and we're just going to have to close.
Well, look, Scotland's been very resilient. Scotland reduced its limit, I think, in 2014. I think people just need to organise themselves.
But it hasn't cut the accidents.
No, it hasn't cut the accidents. It hasn't, because the serious drinkers are going to just carry on.
So why do we need to adjust it for everybody else? Look, I'm with you. I don't think people should drink and drive, and I don't drink and drive. But will it actually? It's one of those things. It sounds good. Will it make a difference? Because the people who are drink driving ignore the law. We know that.
It will, because if you think you're 4 times more likely to have an accident at the current level, and you're going to reduce that level, people are going to think, oh my God, I didn't realise that. You're 6 more times likely to be killed or seriously injured. You throw in a little bit of enforceability, a little bit of education, and people will start to listen if we deal with it in the right way. It can only make the roads safer. It can't make them any more dangerous, can it? Because it's saying to people, look, this is such a dangerous thing to do.
It's a clear signal. What about over 70s having an eye test every 3 years? We know that certainly over 80s there's a massive impairment in people's reaction time. Over 70s, should that be required?
Absolutely. For me, it's not just eyes, it's coordination, it's reaction time, and we need to do that every 3 years. So basically a full medical for everyone over 70. That again will only make people who are safe to drive on the roads. Bearing in mind, to read a driving licence, you're only required to read a licence from 20 metres. Yeah. So, when you consider what's required on a road, speed, etc., if you can't do that, you definitely shouldn't be driving.
And what about the 6-month wait between your theory test and your practical test, even though, by the way, they can put it in law. I mean, it's already in practice more than 6 months, certainly
it is.
In most parts of the country right now, we're actually trying to get a test.
Look, my views for new drivers, they are talking about actually reducing the level of alcohol to even below the new level proposed for everyone else.
I would say new drivers, absolute zero, nothing to discuss.
And that should happen. And I have a rather radical view, which is actually to put a black box in every new driver's car for 2 years that is interactive, that is monitored wherever they go. And I know, people who say you're interfering with my rights, but they are a huge problem. And all we're asking them to do is say, comply with the law and you'll be safer. And we're putting you on the right track. You will become a much better driver for it. So I don't think it's a serious complaint.
Okay, very interesting to hear from you. Nick Freeman, motoring lawyer, road safety campaigner. Thank you very much. Love to hear your reaction to what you had to say. 0344 499 1000. Love to hear you, particularly if you're a publican in the rural area, the impact on you. Maybe you've got a family member who's been involved in an incident. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. We'll hear more from Claire Pearsall. Lots more top guests coming, including the former Defence Secretary, Sir Ben Wallace. Do we have enough men to put boots on the ground in Ukraine? That's coming up. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. It's coming up 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Welcome to the show. If you just joined us, if you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, whether you're watching on YouTube or your connected device, it is great to have your company. Lots to talk about today. If you do miss any of the show, I'm with you live until 1 o'clock. You can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. Never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, going to talk more about those drink drive laws being tightened. Very interesting conversation with Nick Freeman just then. Also, British boots on the ground in Ukraine. We're going to talk about that in the next 10 minutes or so with a former Defence Secretary for the Conservatives, Sir Ben Wallace, and also a catastrophic police blunder as parents were told their teenage son had died in a crash days before Christmas when he was actually alive in hospital. Another set of parents being told their son had survived when actually he was dead. Absolutely extraordinary blunder. How on earth? I mean, the police are not carrying themselves in glory at the moment, are they not? Anyway, joining me for the chat today, Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Lots to talk about at home and abroad. Question we're putting on our audience, topic we're just talking about with Nick Freeman, the road safety campaigner. Government plans to slash the drink driving limit to under 1 pint. It's currently about 2 pints, but it kind of is it or isn't it? It depends whether you've had a meal. It depends whether you're a big bloke or a small woman. But basically, they claim it's going to improve road safety. What is your reaction? Because there's a lot of concern for local pubs and country pubs. A lot of concern that actually it's not going to make any darn difference. The people who are drink driving are drinking 20 pints, not 2 pints. What is your reaction? To give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. And you can also send us a message on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost one standard network rate message. Claire, I have to say, I think Nick may have changed my mind on all of this. I thought he was very convincing.
I think he was extremely convincing. I mean, I do query the amount of young people who are drinking because Gen Z are notorious for their health and wellness.
What is this whole Gen Z thing?
This is the young, so it'll be our children's age up to about 21, 22.
But they're largely not drinking. I think the biggest problem we've got with these young people is they're not drink. They should be drinking and having more sex. That's what I think they should be doing. And then they'd all stop being whingy and moany and complaining about everything.
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to affect that age group because they're not drinking anwoy. It is the older people who have grown up thinking that it's absolutely fine to do it.
I don't know anyone of my generation, I'm 57, who would not be ashamed. I mean, absolutely mortified, if they drank drove.
But I also think we need to look at
drink. I don't know. I don't know how to say that.
If you can't say it, don't drink and
or
drive.
Have I been drinking? It could go either way, this one,
But the designated driver scheme, I remember when I was 18, I was the designated driver one evening with my friends. I paid for nothing all evening. I had soft drinks.
You're our taxi home.
You're our taxi home. You have to put up with drunk people. And they bought me a bottle of booze to have the following day, which they gave me at the end.
These people are committed. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? There's just only so many glasses of Coca-Cola or lemonade you can drink.
It was as dumb as dishwater.
It's just, but that's not. But that's the thing. I would never consider drink driving, but it would never be an issue. I have a husband who loves driving.
Yes.
B, I live in central London. I'm basically, I'm going to Uber. I will get the tube. Yeah. But see, also, my husband doesn't like being driven by me. So he says, I have to be drunk to be driven by you. He's clutched his lip. I am an average driver, okay? I'm an average driver. If you want to get somewhere quickly, I am your girl. I'm just telling you. I'm the same as well. I don't know. But so I know that I can't impair. I cannot possibly impair my driving at all. And I'd rather just not drive than impair my drinking. Because I think that's a good part of a night out. So I just don't use the car. I mean, honestly, I'm not lying. It's quite routine to come out and find where is the car. Parked it somewhere 2 weeks ago and it's got cobwebs on the ring mirrors. I'm not joking. But this is the thing that a lot of people in big cities like London don't get, how absolutely fine. You can't go anywhere. You can't get to work. You can't get your kids to school. You can't get to college, young person. You can't go to your job. You can't do the shop. You can't do anything without a car. They're a vital lifeline. And they're a vital lifeline for people going to country pubs.
Yeah, they absolutely are. I mean, the country pub is a brilliant institution, and I don't see how this will affect them any more than the current set of taxes is already affecting country pubs. I think that the government needs to step away from nanny state ideas like this, which aren't going to do anything for road safety, and all they're going to do is basically hit the middle class who they hate. That's what it is,
the thing.
isn't it?
Most of the people who drink driving, who are involved, by the way, drink driving is a tiny percentage of accidents on the road. It's largely people just making very poor decisions about, not looking properly. Any accident, it's not looked properly. And speed is a bigger factor. And come on, God, I mean, you're 20 miles per hour on my way pretty much everywhere. It's an absolute nightmare. But we know that has an impact on, and we've had callers earlier, that has a massive impact on your stopping time and whether it's not someone's going to die or whether they're going to just be injured if you did hit them. But the people who are drink driving are off their head on drugs, 20 pints. They care not a jot. They don't expect to be caught. Frankly, they're probably alcoholics anyway. They think they're beyond the law. We don't punish these people seriously enough anyway, because it should be an automatic. I think drink driving, automatic 5-year ban, nothing to discuss. These people that go to court, and you get some celebrities, they go, but I need my car for my job. Well, you should have thought of that before you drove or you drove at 100 miles per hour on a local road then, shouldn't you? I would have thought if I needed my car for my job, I'd be a bit more careful about these things.
Yeah, and that's the view I take, is that I need to have my car, I need to be able to drive and get around, so therefore I'm not going to do anything that's going to put that at risk. Yeah. But I do think drug driving is actually far more serious. And he's dead right. You see those little canisters, those laughing gas canisters, and you see that's with the younger age range. It's not the alcohol, it's those.
Do you know, I was really aware when I used to work on the breakfast show, and I'd be travelling into work at about for half 5. Yeah. And especially on a bank holiday weekend, and everybody, you've got all these people on their way home from the nights out, and they're in the car and the music's going. You're like, no way, you lot are all sober. You're looking at the driver, you're thinking, you are not the I'm annoyed, I'm the sober driver. And you're thinking, police, nowhere to be seen. Central London, nowhere to be seen, going, you should clean it. And then you read these stories about, these cars that have gone off the roads, a load of teenagers or in their 20s being killed, and you just think, it's not a mystery, is it? It's not a mystery.
No, it really isn't. And that's where the police need to be looking at their time. But we don't have enough police to look at the actual crimes going on around our towns and cities at the moment without adding another level of drink driving.
Well, we've got an extra issue on the roads at the moment, which is a lack of grit on the roads when we've got all the ice and snow. I was saying earlier when I arrived at the show that I did one of those little old ladies. I've fallen and I can't get up. And I'm not suing myself because it was my own front path. I was in trainers, and it looked absolutely fine out there. Looked fine, and you couldn't see anything. Absolute sheet of ice in the front path. Got the walking boots on. Still barely made it to the tube station because it was all so slippery. A lot of anger. An awful lot of councils, as always, saving money. They don't mend the potholes and they don't put grit on the roads. And what a surprise! People are having accidents, or the roads are impassable. I
mean, in defence of councils, ever so slightly. I mean, it's very complicated. You have national highways.
She's a local Tory councillor.
I used to be. It's still there. But you've got national highways that look after the motorway and main roads, and then you've got your local authorities who look after A and B roads around towns and cities.
So it's not going to be your local residential street that gets
Absolutely not. They don't have enough vehicles to be able to do that. Now, this is where communities come in and local parish councils, because the grit bins, we've got them around our village everywhere, and everybody goes and helps themselves to a thing of salt and grits along the pathways and along the roads, and they help out their neighbours. I mean, I know, shock horror. Actually, this is the one time of year.
Catch on.
This is the one time of year that most people get on because they're out to look out for each other, and no one wants a little old lady falling over.
Like me. A big old lady falling over. Honestly, that was like a beetle. I couldn't get up. It was ridiculous. Okay, there's another story close to home. Let's talk about Reform. They've had a press conference this morning. They've announced their London mayoral candidate for the elections next year. We've got local elections coming up this year. The few that Keir Starmer's going to actually allow to go ahead. We know Reform are going to be the big losers now. A lot of Conservative councils and basically most of the south east outside London are supposed to have local elections. Those are going to be be delayed, and basically could have a 3-year delay in total. But they've announced that Layla Cunningham, regular here on the show, she's been a local Westminster councillor. She's going to be the London mayoral candidate. She has already said she's pledging to automate every single tube train in London unless the unions and Transport for London start working for Londoners. It was a spate when we had strike after strike after strike, and basically, we've got tube drivers on 70 plus grand a year for work that, I'm sorry, it's basically 2 weeks of training. I'm all for people earning a decent salary, but I don't think that the person who is driving the train start, stop, open doors, close doors. I'm not entirely sure that person should be paid more than the resident doctor who is doing surgery on my child. I'm sorry, I really think we need to get to grips with this. They've been holding the country to ransom, holding the capital city to ransom many, many times with their strikes. She's basically saying, no, play ball or I'm going to automate. The reality is, it would take years to automate in different technology. But I'm all for that threat.
I think that we need those kind of serious levels of threats. When you're talking about unions, they are so militant and they will not be shifted from whatever opinion it is. And if you give in to them once, you have to keep giving in to them, as we've seen. So if whoever shouts loudest gets the pay rise.
And it's basically closed shop.
Yeah, it is closed shop, and it always has been. So I support her in that. It'd be interesting to see what other policies she brings forward for London, to see what kind of difference they make. It's a long time of a campaign. So
Sadiq Khan's on his 3rd term,
which is unbelievable.
It is extraordinary.
Really is
it is. I mean, it's a very divided city, I have to say. I did think that ULEZ was going to be the back of him, but no. That said, I mean, his trolling of us on New Year's Eve. I did watch the fireworks back New Year's Eve. It's like, could we just have some fireworks? Could we just have some fireworks and not get the political messaging? And any excuse, and I know he managed to get it in on the sort of like suspect Ryder Cup victory, EU flag. That EU flag was the whole of the London Eye. It was. Whole of the London Eye. Yeah. We got the England flag for a fraction of the time compared to the EU flag. I'm sorry.
I know, and I just want to see fireworks because we tuned in and watched it as well. I just want to see pretty fireworks going off. I want the capital to look great, and I don't need
good advertisement for the rest of the world. Can you? But I know it's just so frustrating. Anyway, going to take a quick break. Up next, we're going to be talking to Sir Ben Wallace, the former Conservative Defence Secretary, about Ukraine and Greenland and Venezuela and you name it. And can we put the boots on the ground anywhere? Keir Starmer, you and whose army? This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Welcome back to the show. Just a couple of moments. Going to talk to former Defence Secretary for the Conservatives, Sir Ben Wallace, about all things Ukraine. First up, let's run it by you, Claire. Ukraine, we're talking about deploying peacekeeping troops on the ground, not fighting the Russians, but, you know, on the ground in Ukraine. This is UK and France, part of the coalition of the willing. Yesterday we were laughing at the coalition of willing to do what and able to do what. That's the key thing. But do we even have the troops to put on the ground?
I don't think we do. And where are you going to be taking them from? How long are they going to be there, and what do we have in place?
Haven't we thrown them all out of our military bases so we can put illegal migrants in them?
Basically, yes.
I thought that was what we did now.
But we don't have the personnel. The Armed Forces recruitment scheme is woeful at best. So if anybody in the defence staff is listening, you need to do better than that. You want more people in. You need to be a lot more streamlined.
At least they've stopped those adverts basically saying, hello, if you've got a mental illness, come and join.
The army.
No, there's basically that word, the advert. Are you just not coping with daily life? Come and join the army. At least now they're like, do you want a future? Do you want to be an engineer? Come and join the army, get a qualification. At least it's a bit more gung-ho and, I don't know, military-like.
Yeah, no, I mean, they do need to do it better, but that comes with having the private sector involved in some of the clearing of it. So, you know, that aside, we don't have the equipment because we've given a lot of it away. We haven't invested enough. We haven't.
We're
spent
going to have military hubs, apparently.
I don't know what a military hub is.
I don't know what. And you're from a military hub. We're going to have. Is it signed an agreement for British forces to operate on Ukrainian soil in military hubs across the country?
It sounds a little bit sort of like a social services thing, doesn't it? Is this where you come and get your advice?
It's like a one-stop shop.
Yes.
Get your weapons.
Well, this
they want to oversee the construction of protected facilities to store weapons and military equipment that could be used to support Ukraine's defence. The reality is that Putin has been very clear. He doesn't want any NATO boots on the ground at all in Ukraine. He would consider that, he would say, a provocation. He considers Ukraine's existence a provocation, though.
Well, of course, he was never going to be happy with any kind of conversation that didn't include him having Ukraine as a whole as part of Russia. He's not interested really in anything else. He thinks he can just carry on and people will give in to him because that's what's always happened in the past. I think he's going to be sorely disappointed, but this war will just rumble on because there is no way out. How do you deal with a dictator like him?
Well, let's think. I mean, look, we've got, there's also, let's face it, there are these strong words that we've had, not just about Ukraine, but strong words that we've had about Greenland. And, Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. It's a European nation. It's a NATO member. Got the prospect of I don't think anyone saw this was an option. A member of NATO, the most powerful and consequential member of NATO, America, would be threatening to invade, another member state.
I mean, it just beggars belief, doesn't it? This is not what NATO was set up to do. There are no rules around NATO members invading other NATO members. So I'm not quite sure what Trump thought he was going to do with that.
It wasn't on our bingo card for this year. It was not. Right, well, let's talk about all this now with the former Conservative Defence Secretary, Sir Ben Wallace. He joins us. A very good morning to you, Sir Ben.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Let's just talk about, first of all, about Ukraine. We've got a big promise from the British and the French of their commitment to send troops to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire in Ukraine. First of all, do you think there will be a ceasefire, some sort of deal with Putin? And second of all, do we have any troops to send?
I don't think there'll be a ceasefire. I mean, certainly Putin has been very, very clear throughout, even before the invasion. He will not tolerate, as he sees it, NATO troops on the soil of Ukraine. He doesn't also really recognise Ukraine, but in his view, he's a politician that believes in a sphere of influence. He believes Ukraine is his, and they've been consistent. I mean, in defence of them, they have never changed their view that they want to run Ukraine, that they don't believe the NATO troops should be anywhere near them, and they're not going to give up any ground that they've taken, and they're expecting Zelensky to give up even more ground, including vulnerable. So, we shouldn't be surprised. They also know that Donald Trump doesn't follow through on any of his ultimatums to them. I think he's had 10 ultimatums to Putin so far. Putin rings them up. Nothing happens. Trump starts spouting Russian talking lines, talking points. And so why would Putin do it? I suspect he might play along to see how long it takes for us to get in a tangle about rules of engagement, because you have to work out the details on this. And then, do we have an armed forces that can deploy? Well, you could argue it's the coalition of the unfunded of the three big powers there. I mean, Britain and France aren't funding defence. In my tenure, Britain was number 2 in NATO. We're now down to number 12 in NATO. We're surrendering.
In terms of what? In terms of the absolute numbers or percentage of GDP?
A mixture, both. Percentage of GDP would be one of the main indicators.
But a lot of that's nonsense anyway, because, veterans' pensions, as vital, as important as they are, doesn't actually make us any safer in terms of our defence spending, and yet that's included in our percentage, isn't it?
Well, I think there are some things that I think are reasonable, and remember, most people are comparing like for like. The reason I would say veterans' pensions is, I get soldiers for pensions, right? VAT receipt that George Osborne piled into it. I've never killed anyone with a VAT receipt. It's a total fraud. The Italians were recently trying to fold in a bridge to Sicily. Our new government, or this government, has now added MI6's budget, GCHQ's budget, is trying to put broadband budget into it.
Yeah.
In my tenure, they tried to get me to put the costs of asylum seekers into the defence budget and claim it. So it fools no one. It doesn't fool our partners. Definitely didn't fool the Americans, and it certainly doesn't fool Putin. So ultimately, as the OBR itself spotted, Keir Starmer hasn't laid any plans out to get to 3.5% GDP.
Why not? Because this is the thing. I've lost track of the number of former defence secretaries. And you were speaking about it, so I know you were speaking about it. At the cabinet table, you were, being very forceful about it when you were in government. You were certainly very vocal about it when you left government. Virtually every single senior military figure, past and even now present, MI6, MI5, everyone is saying the threat is there. We are no longer living in this post, Cold War dividend. Everyone needs to take the threats. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, the Islamists. We've got to take this stuff seriously. We all live in a dangerous world, and we need to up our spending. Why are the politicians only talking the talk and not walking the walk? Because a lot of people are saying we are in the 1930s, 1938 even, and people are not taking the threat seriously. Why not?
Because we have now, in my personal view, we have a generation of politicians who have been brought up on a view that they tell the public everyone's a winner. It's a pain-free way to power. The winner of a general election is the person that says the least, not says the most. And Julia, from your own show, you spend your time on general elections trying to catch us out because we're saying nothing.
Promising change.
We've treated the public like infants. Slogans like "Stop the Boats." All of them do it. Nigel Farage is no different. He does it. Vote for me on day one. No, he won't. Right? We don't level with the public. And so when it comes to defence spending, which would be painful to fund, we'd have to cut welfare, or we'd have to cut some of the other things we spend our money on. They don't want to do it. They don't want to say it. And, to lead is to choose. This government has chosen to back down on welfare reform, which could help fund it. They have chosen not to reform the health service. They just bunged it more cash. My government seemed to do a lot of that as well. And fundamentally, we're now in this place where we bizarrely go around Europe telling everyone how dangerous it is, and look ever more hollow. I, as you know, I wasn't always the best team player as a Secretary of State for Defence. I took the view that if I had to have a row, if I had to break some china, I was going to get defence properly funded. And on my watch, I got 31 billion. If you add up all the extras I demanded, it didn't make me popular with colleagues. But ultimately, I have I have the credibility now to say, our forces hollowed out, and we've got to fix it.
Well, this is it. I mean, people pointing out, we've now got more illegal migrants in the country that we're sitting around paying for in houses of multiple occupation or in hotels than our actual, boots on the ground army or military. We've now got these these statements from the coalition of the willing to do what we're not sure in Paris yesterday. That big statement from all the leaders, including Keir Starmer, Macron, and Schulz and others. Friedrich Merz, saying basically, Denmark and people of Greenland, they get to decide what happens to Denmark, no one else. But my response to that was, wasn't it, you and whose army? We can't really defend Ukraine without America's help. There's no way we can take on America if America decides to, in whatever way, seize Greenland, is there?
No, and look, I don't think when we say hands off Greenland, first of all, we should say it with clarity. It's pathetic, our response at first. I don't know if you remember yesterday, the junior ministers were doing the media round and they couldn't even say hands off Denmark. It was reluctantly only when journalists sort of dragged it out of Keir Starmer at a school visit in the afternoon did he say it. This is a major, solid ally that not only supports Britain but supports America. It deployed hundreds of people to Iraq. It deployed hundreds of people to Afghanistan. It lost lots of people. It's a NATO ally. And let's not forget, Greenland has an American military base on it, right? This is not about security. It's total nonsense. It's about oil, gas, and minerals. America can do whatever it likes around the territories of Greenland, as does NATO. We operate there. We don't just exercise there. We operate. We function together, making sure that the very important choke point called the Greenland-Iceland-UK gap, which all the Russian nuclear submarines have to go through, all the Chinese ships, that's monitored, that's surveyed. We do all of that already, right? So this is not about this security. And also Trump will know, well, maybe he won't, but some of his people, that even if he got his way, absorbing a country into the state of the United States takes years, right? I mean, Puerto Rico and places like that haven't even got there. So the idea that Greenland is suddenly going to have a magic wand is also misleading.
But let me put this idea to you, though, because given that we know that there's amazing storage of a supply of vital rare earths that Greenland has, and given the threats that we see from China, blatant open threats from China to Taiwan, where most of our microchips come from, and certainly 90% of the highest grade ones come from. We're in a situation where if there were that invasion, and I've got no doubt that invasion will come in the next few years, frankly, in the Western world, we are going to be in a very, very difficult bind with in terms of your mobile phones, your computers, your electric cars, you name it. Would it not be a good idea that America, rather than, say, China or Russia, was exploiting Greenland's natural resources, which they are failing to do themselves, or the Danish kingdom is failing to do, when we actually are going to need those resources? And actually, it may be in Western worlds and the allies of America like us, it may be in our interest for America to take that country and start actually exploiting those resources.
Well, I think Taiwan's strength in its microchip manufacture is based on two rather odd things. One is it has lots of factories in China, right? It's not entirely on the island. Bizarrely, there are direct flights between Beijing and Taiwan, right? So it's not entirely a sort of North Korean standoff. But secondly, at the moment, there's no evidence that there's that shortage of minerals that need to be requisited from Denmark to make it up. Norway recently discovered huge amounts of rare earth minerals that they will exploit. And I think the other thing to say is, look, it's more likely President Xi will take Taiwan with President Trump's behavior rather than less likely.
Why?
President Trump's national security strategy in November said, I believe in spheres of influence. I don't believe in the traditional post-war Western rules-based system where we are combined by our values, not by might. We adjudicate by values and law and open democracies and freedom. We don't say I'm biggest, so I'll have it. He's shifted that. He's very clear that the Western Hemisphere is going to be his. He's clear by his actions that he thinks Russia has a sphere of influence in which Ukraine is up for grabs if Putin wants it. So there's one other person who believes in spheres of influence, has President Xi.
Yeah.
He believes the South China Sea is his. He believes Taiwan is his. And now he sees American president, the only man who could really stop him, say, hey, guys, that's what I believe is the way forward.
This is mine, that's yours, is what they'll interpret.
And you've got no leg to stand on. Makes it more likely, not less.
There's been lots of talk about, as you say, that rules-based international order and how the world is collapsing because Donald Trump is, as you say, talking about might, not right. But isn't Donald Trump, and isn't that national security strategy published by the US a couple of months ago, isn't that actually just, basically pointing out the de facto, the reality that has always been the case, and we play along with the niceties with the United Nations and everyone, and the democratic nations pretend it's all about that. But actually, at the end of the day, whoever's got the nuclear weapons, whoever's got the biggest army, whoever's willing to use it, is the one who gets to have the say.
Well, I'm not sure, because what underpins most of our states since the Second World War is the rule-based system in things like the economy, in trade, in
But only
banking.
in democratic countries. Most of the countries in this world are not democratic.
Yeah, so one of the biggest democratic dogs on the block is about to rip that up, right? I mean, what does that mean for sharing information? What does it mean for intellectual property? What does it mean if suddenly America were to choose to steal intellectual property in the same way China does? What would it mean for all the people listening and watching to this program? What would it mean for their jobs, right? So we still do trade along rules. We still have the most ratified international treaty is freedom of navigation, right? What does that mean China doesn't go around boarding our ships and, etc. We all follow a set of rules. It doesn't mean to say we descend into anarchy. We still, in many parts of our lives, have these systems. You try opening a bank account, right? If that all goes out the window in other areas, apart from maybe military might, we are in real trouble in everything we do, right? I mean, and actually America made itself wealthy based on those rules. Yeah. And I think one of the jobs of its allies is to point out to America, yes, you can get a short-term gain by moving tanks onto somebody's lawn, but ultimately, as we saw in Iraq, as we saw Russia's invasion of Ukraine, military might isn't enduring in how you survive. And ultimately, Russia has paid a huge price in blood and gold for its ego and its foolhardy invasion of Ukraine. America, by far away the biggest power in the second Iraq war in the world. China was not as powerful then. Look what it cost America. Yep. So ultimately, in the long term, this doesn't help any nation.
Very interesting. Just finally, briefly, if you would, I know you've got to go as well, but I mean, do you think that what Donald Trump did on Saturday, seizing Maduro and his wife in Venezuela, and what he subsequently said about Greenland, Colombia, everything, do you think that makes the world a safer or a less safe place?
I think if he'd stopped at rendering Maduro for trial in a independent court for being indicted for drug smuggling and everything else, in my view, I think that's acceptable. I was always challenging the ECHR, that the European Convention on Human Rights prevented me sending people into Syria to capture the Beatles to bring them back for trial. Yep. I mean, we wanted them on trial. We wanted justice to be seen to be done. We wanted the victims their day in court to be able to look at these people in their eye. But no, I'm not allowed to do that under our current treaties. I'm only allowed to kill them, believe it or not, if there's an imminent threat. And that is ridiculous and needs to be modernized. The bit I'm most concerned about is Venezuela is not that. It's and now we're going to run your country, and we're now going to take your oil and pay for the price we want to pay for it. That's what Putin did in the Donbass, right? So we should be clear where we disagree, and it threatens Britain's national interest. And let's not forget, we have a national interest in all of this. We should be clear. We should be strong. We shouldn't be provocative or aggressive or punchy or hollow. We should just be clear about it and spend time telling our friends in America that, through this path, we're both worse off.
Fascinating. Great to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us, Sir Ben Wallace, former Defence Secretary there. Love to hear your thoughts on what he has. So going to get Claire's thoughts, get you on the phone lines as well. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. That's the number to call. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 11:38 is the time. Let's get to your calls and let's get to Claire Pearson as well, former Conservative Government Advisor, listening to Sir Ben Wallace. Okay, you're a Tory, he's an ex-Tory. He's very straight talking, is Sir Ben Wallace. It was really interesting to hear from him today. I mean, I thought that, the coalition of the unfunded, I thought, ouch. I mean, that's the reality. We were saying, us and, Keir Starmer and Macron, you and whose army. What do you make of what you had to say on all the issues we covered?
I mean, he is always worth listening to. He was Security Minister at the Home Office when I was over there doing immigration, so I had quite a lot to do with him. And he is very, very straight talking, and he's not afraid to go and have a row about funding pretty much all of the time. And I think that that's one of the most important things. He knows how underfunded our defence systems are and how bad that is. And he's right, this government just doesn't have the will to do anything about it. You're going to have to make some really hard decisions. Let's look at welfare reform. You haven't really done that. We need to be funding our defence, because surely if you don't do that, you don't have a country left to pay out welfare for.
It's going to cost us so much more. We are going to have to rearm. It's going to cost a lot more the later we do it. This is absolutely fixing the roof. This is, you've got a little bit of a leak. Fix the roof now, guys. It's going to cost you tens of thousands if you don't, and that's. But for us, it's going to be 10-hundreds of billions if we don't. That's the reality. War is really expensive, and I've said it a million times. I'm not a warmonger. The best way of avoiding war is to be able and willing to fight a war, and for your adversaries to know that. It's the reason why Putin went into Ukraine was because he didn't expect there would be any proper reaction from NATO or from the EU. And let's face it, he was right, wasn't he? But there we are. I think they've surprised themselves. Let's go to the phone lines. 0344 499 1000. Anthony's on the line. He's in Manchester. Anthony, you want to talk about Ukraine. What do you want to say?
Hi, Julia. Great. Yeah. We cannot depend on America at all. This more.
Oh, Anthony, your phone line's cutting in and out. Can you, I don't know, move one step to the left? That usually seems to be the tech way of dealing with these things.
Is that better?
I think so. Well, we'll persevere. You're saying we can't depend on the US anymore?
Yeah. Well, if you look at NATO, there's more than 20 countries in NATO that are European-based. And we need to man up. We need to stand on our own 2 feet. If you ask for those 20 countries to put 15,000 troops down and commit 15,000 troops each to the peace in Ukraine, that's 300,000 troops.
Yeah.
We could put in. Putin's a bully. And the only way to deal with a bully is to bully him back. And like you said, Europe has sat back and let him march into Ukraine.
Yep.
And we cannot allow it to happen. We need to man up as Europe. We cannot depend on America. And Trump's made that perfectly clear. He's not.
We can't just go, we'll all hold out until another president comes into power. Well, if it's J.D. Vance next time, I'm sorry, but, America's going to withdraw even more.
Precisely. And you've got some big countries in NATO, like Poland, like Germany. Maybe not the UK, we've got less than 60,000 troops. I know I was one of them, and my son is now.
Yep.
But we need to man up as a Europe. We cannot look to America. You have politicians on this morning saying this wouldn't work unless America gets involved.
Yeah.
Rubbish.
Well, no, I think it probably wouldn't. But that's big. But then we should make it. We should change it so we don't need America. I mean, that's the crucial thing. I've always said I don't understand why taxpayer in Minnesota is paying for the defence of my country or Poland. It seems bizarre. You say you're an ex-military man. A lot of people say to me, "Oh, you're a warmonger, but you're an armchair general. You're not going to be going to war yourself." So you've fought yourself. Have you been on the front line?
Yeah, certainly. I served in the Gulf War.
Yep.
I served in Sarajevo in the United Nations as a peacekeeper.
You know the reality of war. Explain why you think that, actually building up our forces, being able to defend ourselves can actually, prevent a war.
You've got to look back into history, into the 80s and 90s. Both sides had the ability to annihilate each other with nuclear weapons. And the reason they didn't annihilate each other with nuclear weapons is because we cancelled each other out. And we need, as a European nation, to be able to cancel out Russia by being a strong Europe.
Nailed it. Nailed it. Thank you, Anthony. I so appreciate that. If only our politicians who are actually in power right now got that. Claire Pearce, with a military family, she's nodding away. Thank you for that. A lot of you getting in touch in Ukraine. A lot more of you, though, getting in touch on those drink driving laws. And the drink driving limit is going to be slashed to basically under 1 pint. And the move the government says is going to improve road safety. They've got a consultation out. They're also going to limit, well, you're going to have a driving test every 3 years if you're over 70 to test your eyes. And basically, you're going to have to pass that to keep your licence. Currently, it's basically on a voluntary basis for people to do that. And let's face it, they're not fessing up. They can't see anything. But also a 6-month wait between your theory test if you're learning to drive and being allowed to take your practical test. That's a long wait for a youngster who desperately needs to use their car to get to college or to get to work or anywhere else. But is that right for safety? Well, let's talk to Kevin. He's in Portsmouth. Hello, Kevin. What do you make of these planned changes?
Not a lot. Good morning, Julia.
Well, I thought I'd call you anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm actually a driving instructor. So I am dealing with these people. Some people will never drive. They're just too stupid to drive a car. I'm sorry, but we have to do everything we can to make it as easy as possible so they can drive a car. Passing the theory test is complete nonsense. It's word association.
Yeah.
Okay, what's a traditional British breakfast? Bacon and eggs. Congratulations, you passed.
Yeah.
What does an egg look like? Don't know, don't care, I've passed, I'm gone.
Yeah.
So, therefore, they don't understand the questions, they don't understand the answers, and the way they train for it is simply to do test after test after test until eventually they recognise that phrase goes to that phrase, bingo, you passed.
Yeah.
There's no in-depth knowledge. So, I mean, where do you want me to start? The way our driving instructors are trained is absolutely awful. It's ridiculous.
We don't seem to have enough of them either.
We don't have enough of them, but the point is that the way they're trained is ridiculous. They've got no technical knowledge at all, absolutely none. I've come across driving instructors who don't know how to change a wheel. And no idea how to work out torque if you don't have a torque wrench. That's sort of basic stuff, so you don't do things up too tight or too loose. I could go on and on and on.
Do you need to know that to teach someone to drive?
Well,
I mean, it'd be better if you did, but do you need to?
If you get a flat tyre, you need to know how to change it.
Call the nice man at AA.
Call the nice man at the AA.
I just call my husband and go, what do I do?
But no, I mean, there's so much more to this because, I mean, the theory test itself just looks at the highway code with a couple of extra bits
it's not. I mean, the practical is what it's all about. And we all know. Look, I know people who've been driving for years who I think are absolutely terrifying the way they drive. You know, those people who drive like people in the cinema where they have their hands moving all the time. You think they're not supposed to be moving if you're driving straight. You know, you just hold them still. And people who drive with their hands all, their elbows all clenched up, they're not in control of the wheel properly. I mean, there's loads of basic stuff like that. I consider myself nothing more than an average driver, but I can get you there very quickly, safely. There's a question mark over that. But here's the thing: I don't think most of us would pass our driving test if we took it today.
I do fleet work. I train existing licence holders, and a fair few of them wouldn't pass the test.
Yeah.
But the point is that the practical test, everyone's banging on about, the young people are killing each other. Well, yet they are, because the brain isn't fully formed until they're 25.
They're showing off. It's young lads showing off on the road, isn't it?
Young lads showing off. But the point is that once they pass their test, that's it. They're done. If they don't get caught, nobody bothers them until the day they die. And that's only because DVLA wants its licence back.
Yeah.
So, therefore, one suggestion I would have is that new drivers need to be retested at between 18 and 24 months. The reason being is that the stuff they've learned in their lessons, they can't just chuck it out the window.
They have to be actually applying it.
They've got to apply it, and it's got to become habitual, because the second test won't be nearly as forgiving as the first.
That's very interesting. Well, we had a caller earlier from the States, and she was saying that actually, having restrictions, on young drivers. No, it wasn't from the States. That was something, I don't know. It was Alison. That just having restrictions on drivers is actually a really good thing. If you're a new driver, you're a young driver, that you're not allowed to have passengers. You can't drive after 10 p.m. or whatever. So they can get it. They can go to college, go to work, or whatever. But they're gonna be not on the roads basically on a Saturday night with their mates. Kevin, great to hear from you. He's not a fan of these things. Do you think just finding the drink driving thing, will that make any difference? Will that make the roads safer, limiting the amount people can drink?
No, not really. The ones who get picked up for being drunk have clearly had comfortably too much, even with our generous limit. And everyone's harping on about Europe. Well, I can tell you in France. Now, you know France quite well because you ski out there, don't you?
Yeah, I go out there a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now they've got a drink drive limit of 20 micrograms per 100 millilitres of breath. Okay, and that's all we hear. What you don't hear is they got another limit, which is the same as our existing one, and the 20 micrograms is what they call a délit, which is a weird sort of halfway house between a parking ticket and a crime. It's sort of weird middle ground.
Yeah. So although it's technically stricter, actually it's kind of a wink. It's not. It's just it's a misdemeanor. Very interesting. I have to let you go now, Kevin. I've got to get to a break. Kevin in Portsmouth, really interesting call. Thank you very much indeed. Up next, we are going to talk about it involves safety on the roads. The most extraordinary, catastrophic police blunder, which meant that 2 teenagers, one catastrophic injuries, one dead as a result of a car accident. And the police mixed the children up. One set of parents were told their child had died when they were alive. One was told their child was alive when their child had died. We're going to talk about that up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome back to the show. The most extraordinary story on the front page of the Daily Mail today. I want to talk about it with my next guest, Mike Neville, former Metropolitan Police Detective Chief Inspector. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning,
Thank you for
Julia.
joining us. I'm just going to explain to people the story because it's absolutely blowing my mind. It's a staggering blunder by the police, a mix-up which saw police wrongly tell one family that their son, their teenage son, had died in a car crash, and another that theirs was badly injured in a coma in hospital, leaving relatives grieving one teenager for 3 weeks when he was alive in hospital the whole time. They're planning his funeral, and another family believing their son had miraculously survived a car crash, others died in this car crash, that actually their son was dead. This is involving 18-year-old Joshua Johnson and also 17-year-old Trevor Wynn. And they thought that, apparently everyone thought that Joshua Johnson was under sedation in hospital, but he in fact had died. And they thought that Trevor Wynn had died and he's in fact alive. Parents, I mean, I can't even imagine what they're all going through. How on earth did this happen?
I've no real idea, Julia, to be honest. I mean, the most serious identification issue I dealt with was in the army when a helicopter exploded, and we knew the 2 men were in the helicopter, but of course we had to use dental records to check who was actually who, so the relatives know the person they're burying is tragically that individual. And this case is really strange in the sense it's taken about 3 or more weeks to suss out that it's the wrong person who they believe has died. So I can only imagine that the parents haven't gone to the hospital. As a parent, you would have thought, and it's come to the point where the police are saying they have to use forensics. So I imagine that was taking the fingerprints or something like that. But to not confirm identities and then give out a death message is just absolutely dreadful. You can only feel for the family who thought their son was alive, and I imagine the elation of the family who thought their son was dead. But this doesn't compensate for the family who thought their son was alive.
It's just extraordinary. By all accounts, they're really good friends, these lads, and sadly a third teenager in the car did die when their car left the road and hit a tree. They look very alike, very similar, similar builds and the like. And we're talking about this poor teenager who's been in a coma in hospital for three weeks. We're talking about catastrophic injuries, presumably for both youngsters. We don't have the details, but I'm thinking burns, which would suggest, the parents would have been in there, not able to see their child's face and not realising. But it just defies belief that this was done. And given that if the injuries were so catastrophic for both the dead and the live teenager, that they would just be extra careful to take some DNA to establish who was who. Or maybe they thought, well, this was the owner of the car and this was the kid driving, it must be him that's dead, or whichever way around it was. But it just seems to be so... just such scrappy, low-level police work not to just be 100% sure in this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. I've dealt with all sorts of deaths and been to post-mortems, and the identification of the person is the absolute critical thing. Yeah. And so and if you can't see the face, of course, you've got dental records, you've got fingerprints, you've got DNA. All these things are available to the police to use. And it's just and when you're investigating a death, it's a real responsibility that you're given as a police officer. It's almost an honour that you're trusted to deal with this. And for all the incompetence sometimes of the police with some crimes, the investigation of deaths is something, murders and traffic accidents is something that the police are usually very professional at. And this is just utterly amateurish. And it's the impact on real families, which is the tragedy here.
Well, indeed. And in this case, we know an 18-year-old has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. A 19-year-old was arrested on suspicion of perverted course of justice. And I say another teen did lose their life. We've been talking about road safety a lot today. Front page of the papers today with this government consultation on slashing the drink driving limit to under 1 pint, which they claim will improve road safety. Also, a 6-month wait for between your theory test and your practical test for youngsters. We know there's a big issue with youngsters on the road. And a lot of other countries have restrictions. We talked about that earlier in the show as well. What do you make as a police officer? And again, I've sat in coroner's court as a news reporter and have to see the aftermath. You've been there at the seat of these horrific collisions. What do you make of those changes the government wants to bring in?
I'm not sure on the drink driving. As a previous guest has said, people are going to drink drive. They'll be far more over the limit than a minor fraction. I think the big thing is young lads in cars. It's not having another young lad in that car with you who's egging you on. This is what seems to happen when you see
late at night.
Late at night, young lads. They've got some girls in the car. They're trying to impress them. The other young lads egging them on. It's about who can go with you in that vehicle, I think, in your first 12 months. I think that would make a real difference.
And other countries do have those rules, don't they, about the time you can, and whether you're allowed anyone else in the car. So if a youngster needs to use a car to get to college or to their job, they can do that, but they're just not going to be out joyriding with their mates.
It is true. And a real big problem, Julia, as well, and it's harder for the police to detect, is the use of drugs when driving.
Why is it so hard for them to detect? And why are they not dealing with it? Because everyone, again, I never understand people go, oh, this is a big problem. Well, why are we not dealing with it then?
Well, the breath test is there. The breath tests have got better for alcohol. You used to have to take, the one at the roadside used to be sort of a sort of indication, and then you had to take them to the police station and do the drink drive breath test, the official one there. Now you can do that on the roadside. Testing for drugs is just harder. There's all manner of drugs that people could have taken. And I heard a caller yesterday saying, people are going to football matches. You can't get in the losing football matches because people are taking cocaine, and then they're driving home. Also, the other thing as well is the lack of officers on the ground.
Well, this is the key. Whatever the rule is, if no one... Again, we have laws against shoplifting, but if no shoplifters are ever arrested or prosecuted, it doesn't stop you, you know.
It's easy with speeding because the camera flashes, you know, you're doing 35 and a 30, guilty. There's no way out of that.
Yeah.
But with drink driving, of course, you need officers who are on patrol, who look for erratic driving, who are stopping people, doing breath tests and the like, and that's the failing. You need officers on the ground to enforce things. So politicians will always bring in new rules. You know, we'll ban a zombie knife. We'll ban. We'll make it 0.08 milligrams or whatever instead of 0.5. And the trouble is, though, you can do all these things, pass it in Parliament, and then there's nobody to enforce that, so it doesn't work.
Absolutely. Nailed it there, Mike Neville, former Met Police DCI. I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Claire Pissell, I mean, he's right, isn't he? Because if you don't actually have any police enforcing, if you don't think you're going to get caught, a lot of people won't just... I mean, most of us think, like, well, that's the law, so we don't do it, and it's there for a reason. But a lot of people don't think like that. But look, you and I are both parents of teenagers. One of the things, I'm amazed many parents are terrified, like, oh, they warning their kids, strange danger. I'm like, that was so not a massive concern for me. Mine was always crossing the road.
Yes.
And once you got to a certain age, it was like, you must never, you know, that sort of some art thing, travelling around Europe thing. Yeah. Do not get in the car with someone who's been drinking. I don't care what the cost of a taxi is. I will pay for it. Yeah. But I don't care. Just do not ever get in a car with someone drinking. What do you make? I mean, this awful story of these parents having to find out that their child they thought was alive is dead, and then the other family... I mean, thinking they're grieving and then fighting. It's just awful. I mean, it sounds like one of those movies that you get on Netflix, doesn't it? And you feel for those parents. Just before Christmas, you find out your child is dead and then they're not. So you're grieving somebody that's actually alive and wondering where you are. Just can't even imagine. I can't imagine it. And my heart goes out to them. Don't think I want to. No, no. Yeah, exactly. Hearts go out to those families on both sides. And indeed the youngsters. Coming up, you can hear from the music, top of the hour. We're going to get the news. And then Peter Carball's going to join us. We're going to get the first PMQs of this year. I have a funny feeling there's going to be a bit of a roasting of our old favourite, our friend, yours and mine, Sir Keir Starmer. We'll wait and see how that goes. Lots more top guests coming as well. Lots of your calls as well. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
very good afternoon to you. It's 2 minutes past 12. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, or watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have your company. Still got the company of Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor, and we're delighted to say we're joined by Talk presenter Peter Cardwell in the studio.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. I was listening to you on Drive yesterday.
Marvellous.
Excellent stuff. Really rip-roaring show. We've got first Prime Minister's questions of 2026. I mean, everyone makes a big deal of that. It's all the first thing. Everyone's just been off for a couple of weeks. It's not, it's...
Although a lot has happened, Julia.
To be
There's a lot to talk,
things have happened since Saturday.
Yeah, exactly.
There is that. Oh, okay. We're going to get the first question from Kemi Badenoch. Just very quickly before she does it, what do you think she's going to go on, Peter?
Has to be Venezuela. Has to be something on Venezuela. International law, perhaps.
What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, absolutely. Is all of the foreign policy stuff, especially with international law, and what does Keir Starmer think about it?
Because he has managed to avoid doing this.
Yeah.
You've got Yvette Cooper, his Foreign Secretary, made a statement. He's been kind of pushed and shoved into making statements. Do you have any scintilla of sympathy for the fact that it's in our interest that he does not slag off Donald Trump, the leader of our biggest military and security and intelligence ally, but he wants to.
There's that as well, but also the question is, if Russia breaks the law, what about America?
Well, indeed. Kemi Badenoch, I think, is just standing up. Let's go straight to the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, may I welcome the Prime Minister's efforts to advance peace in Ukraine and his joint statement on Greenland. The last few days have seen significant international events. The US operation in Venezuela, threats towards Greenland, and an agreement to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine. So it is frankly astonishing that the Prime Minister is not making a full statement to Parliament today. No Prime Minister, Labour or Conservative, has failed to make a statement to the House in person after committing to the deployment of British troops. His comments about making a statement in due course, quite frankly, are not good enough. It shows a fundamental lack of respect for all of us here and the people we represent. Mr. Speaker, the US is Britain's closest military ally. However, we are clear that the sovereignty of Greenland is sacrosanct. So can the Prime Minister tell us what influence is he bringing to bear with the US administration to ensure that is respected?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear about what was agreed yesterday, because military plans were drawn up some months ago, and I've updated the House in relation to that. Yesterday was a political declaration that sits under those military plans. If there were to be deployment, there would have to be a legal instrument. Mr. Speaker, deployment would only be after a ceasefire to support Ukraine's capabilities, to conduct deterrent operations, and to construct and protect military hubs. Mr. Speaker, there will be a statement to the House at the earliest opportunity. There could hardly be an opportunity. They claim they want to know about this, and they're trying to shout me down. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the House, if there were a decision to deploy under the agreement that was signed yesterday, then I would put that matter to this House for a debate beforehand and for a vote on that deployment. That is consistent with recent practice, and I'll adhere to that.
Mr. Speaker, why is today not the earliest opportunity? The truth is, the Prime Minister does not want everybody in this House to be able to ask him questions. So he leaves it just to Prime Minister's questions half an hour. On Monday, at least his Foreign Secretary stood up for 2 hours and 15 minutes. It was a non-event, but at least she did that. He is scared of us being able to ask him questions. Yes. 6 questions. Yes, he's here.
Please. I've also requested that we do need an early statement. This House should always be informed first. So I don't like the chantering. Let the questions continue.
One of them asked, but he is here. He's got no choice but to be here for Prime Minister's questions. That's why he's here. If he could skip this, we know he would do. But back to the matter at hand, Mr. Speaker. We all agree, all of us here agree, I think most of us here agree, that NATO is the bedrock of our security. The future of Greenland is of fundamental importance to the future of the alliance. And I am sure that the Prime Minister agrees that it is essential for NATO leaders, including and especially the US, to meet. Will the Prime Minister call for an urgent meeting of NATO leaders?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she says she wants to hear about Ukraine. She's got 6 questions. She's not even asking a second question about what we did yesterday. She's got the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, in relation...
Sorry, can I help the Prime Minister? You don't need to worry about the responsibility of the questions of the opposition. That's the...
Mr. Speaker, NATO is the single most important and effective military alliance the world has ever seen. In the 18 months we've been in power, I've done everything within my ability to strengthen NATO. We had one of the strongest NATO meetings last year, the summit, where we had more members of NATO and more unity. When I arrived back to the House to make a statement, which of course she asked for, her position was I shouldn't have missed PMQs, I should have empty-chaired the NATO summit. That's how serious she is about NATO, Mr. Speaker.
He didn't answer the question, Mr. Speaker. I asked him if he would call for an urgent meeting of NATO leaders. We can all see that the situation is moving rapidly. I also note that he has still not had a call with President Trump. That is concerning 4 days after the events in Venezuela. But yesterday, he announced that Britain and France had signed, he says, a political agreement to put troops on the ground in the event of a peace deal in Ukraine. So given the Prime Minister is not making a statement about that deployment of British troops abroad, one of the most serious decisions a government and a parliament can take, irrespective of what he says, can he at least confirm how many troops would be sent to Ukraine and whether they would be in a combat role?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was with NATO allies yesterday, all day, in which we were discussing security in Europe, in particularly security guarantees for Ukraine, and we made significant progress, and I'm glad that she has welcomed that. Of course, I will speak to President Trump. I spoke to his senior advisors yesterday. We were with them all day. But Mr. Speaker, she asked me about the deployment. We released the statement yesterday. It's clear from that, but I will be clear with the House that there would only be deployment after a ceasefire. It would be to support Ukraine's capabilities, it would be to conduct deterrence operations and to construct and protect military hubs. The number will be determined in accordance with our military plans, which we are drawing up and looking to other members to support. So the number I will put before the House before we were to deploy, but I'll do more than that. If we went as far as a legal instrument to deploy, which would be necessary, I would then have a debate in this House so all members could know exactly what we're doing, make their points of view, and then we would have a vote in this House on the issue, which, to my mind, is the proper procedure in a situation such as this.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the Prime Minister either does not have the detail or does not want to give us the detail. Yes. But this is important. He should be calling an urgent meeting of NATO leaders. He should have spoken to President Trump by now. This is important because if any such peace deal is breached, we would be in direct conflict with Russia. If the Prime Minister is committing troops, he must give more detail on how he intends to ensure our armed forces are fully resourced. Before the budget, the Prime Minister said it was his ambition to spend 3% on defence in the next Parliament. That could be as late as 2034. It is time to move from ambition to commitment. We have now had the budget. So can the Prime Minister now tell us in what year will the UK spend 3% of GDP on defence?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, just on this serious issue she puts to me in relation to security guarantees and the American role and our dialogue with the Americans, I can assure the House I spoke to President Trump twice over the Christmas period in relation to this specific issue, along with members of the E3, along with European allies. That has been a constant course of our discussion. There's no question of acting on this without full discussion with the Americans, and their senior negotiators were there at President Trump's request yesterday and on his instructions, and they were talking to him during the course of yesterday as we negotiated. So to assure the House, because it is a serious position she's putting to me, on the question of security guarantees, there is nothing between the UK and the US, and we've been constantly discussing this over many, many weeks and months. We've made huge progress. I have personally spoken to President Trump about it on 2 occasions since we were last in this House. I do want to reassure her and the House in relation to that really important issue. In relation to defence spend, I'm proud that we're investing to keep our country safe, that we have increased the defence spend. That's provided for in the budget. It's the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War, and that means, Mr. Speaker, better kit, better housing for our forces, and better defence as an engine for growth. Mr. Speaker, that does compare to their record. Ben Wallace, who was on the radio this morning, the longest-serving Conservative Defence Secretary, admitted that on their watch the armed services had been, in his words, hollowed out. And our defence...
Mr. Cartledge, you expect a lot, I expect something back, and that's silence. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, they shout shame. I'll pass that on to Ben Wallace. Mr. Speaker, the defence spending that we put in place is 3 years earlier than the unfunded plan that they left behind at the last election.
Mr. Speaker, I heard what... Oh, wait for it. What Ben Wallace said was that spending had fallen under all governments. 3%, the last time, Mr. Speaker, the last time spending was at 3% was under a Conservative government. And yes, while we welcome the increase, something that we supported, can I remind the House that this is a man who sat in the shadow cabinet and tried to make Prime Minister a man who said we shouldn't even be in NATO at all. So I don't need to take any lectures from him. The world is changing. We need to spend more on defence. He did not answer the question about when we would get to 3%, yet he knows up until 2031 how much he's going to be spending on welfare. He doesn't know. That's in the Red Book. The Red Book has no money allocated for defence. We need to move from ambition to commitment. And Mr. Speaker, this is important because this isn't just about money. If the Prime Minister is deploying troops to Ukraine, those troops need to know that we have their backs. Last week, 7 former SAS commanders, 7 former SAS commanders warned that Labour's Northern Ireland Troubles Bill will wreck our special forces. Not me, that's the SAS. In November, 9 retired 4-star generals warned that his bill was a direct threat to national security. And even his own Northern Ireland Veterans Commissioner has said our veterans are being treated worse than terrorists. So, Mr. Speaker, is it not madness to be putting veterans in the dock for serving their country at the same time he is deploying today's soldiers into Ukraine?
Mr. Speaker, that was embarrassing. She said that Ben Wallace was talking about all government. They were in power for 14 years and they hollowed out our armed forces. Copyright Ben Wallace. Secondly, she talks about the shadow cabinet. She has in her shadow cabinet a shadow attorney general who is advising Abramovich at the same time as we are imposing sanctions on Russia and trying to use that money to support Ukraine. How can someone sit in her shadow cabinet advising someone trying to escape sanctions and pretend that their policy is to support us on sanctions. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to Northern Ireland, they are the party that gave immunity to IRA terrorists, terrorists who killed British soldiers. Their flawed act was struck down by the courts, which left our veterans with no legal protection whatsoever. We're introducing a fair and transparent process with a package of rights and protections for our veterans. And, Mr. Speaker, there is no equivalence between our armed forces who fought bravely in Northern Ireland and terrorist groups. And if the Leader of the Opposition wants to go back, if her position is, to their old flawed legislation and give immunity to the IRA, she should stand up now and say so.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by talking about the Shadow Attorney General. Yes. Yeah. Do they know what the Shadow Attorney General is doing? He is defending veterans pro bono against the actions of this government. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we will defend those who defended us. But why don't we talk about the actual Attorney General who is sitting in Cabinet, the man who defended Jerry Adams, the man who's trying to bring Shamima Begum back into the country, the man who is helping to surrender the Chagos Islands. I will take our Shadow Attorney General every day of the week against his Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, we protect our veterans. I want the Prime Minister to know we protect our veterans. What he is doing to veterans is disgraceful. But this is serious, Mr. Speaker. I don't want the House to be under any illusions. I do not want the House to be under any illusions. The Prime Minister should know that we will absolutely support any efforts to help bring peace to Ukraine. We will work with him to ensure NATO remains the bedrock of our security. But we cannot write a blank cheque when he is also surrendering the Chagos Islands, surrendering our veterans to lawfare, and surrendering to his backbenchers by prioritising welfare handouts over defence spending, as if the world has not become more dangerous. So, Mr. Speaker, isn't it time the Prime Minister changed course and for once put the British national interest first?
Mr. Speaker, she talks about the Shadow Attorney General. Of course I accept that lawyers have to represent all sorts of clients. Of course I accept that principle. The question is whether the Shadow Attorney General can sit in the Shadow Cabinet when the party opposite says it supports us on sanctions. We want the money from Chelsea Football Club to go to Ukraine. I'm not sure whether that's her position. If it is her position, presumably it's something they discuss in the Shadow Cabinet, advised by a Shadow Attorney General who is representing the very man whose money we want to send to Ukraine. If she can't see the conflict of interest in that, then she shows no judgment and no leadership at all. The same old. It's a new year, but the Leader of the Opposition's got absolutely nothing to offer the country. She is totally irrelevant. Nobody is listening to her. Mr. Speaker, this is the year when on this side we turn a corner. People benefit from the decisions we made, £150 off energy bills, freezing rail fares and lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. We're turning the corner and there's much more to come.
Well, that was the final part of the exchange between the Prime Minister and the Opposition. Still with me in the studio, Peter Cobwell and Claire Pearsall. I have to say, Peter, I thought that was a really weird PMQs. It was kind of all round the houses, lots of big issues. And we were talking about deploying troops to Ukraine, and then we're into a whole conversation about whether lawyers should take certain roles and, in terms of take certain clients. And then that... I mean, again, I think it's very demeaning for the Prime Minister, talking about the Leader of the Opposition as she's totally irrelevant, nobody is listening to her. I don't think that voters on any side of political debate really like politicians talking about people like that.
He didn't need that little bit at the end where he talked about the £150 and the children out of poverty. He had that prepared and he didn't need it. There was an awful lot of heat in that PMQs and not an awful lot of light. You're absolutely right. They went round the houses. I'm not sure anybody who doesn't follow politics mistakes every single day, and even those who do, I think, were a bit bored and baffled by that very, very strange PMQs. I don't think either one of them won either.
No.
I think they were both quite
unusually
weak.
because, let's face it, Kemi Badenoch has been winning them hands down.
She was waffling at points. She was really waffling.
There was a lot of because often you want to play. There's a theme often going through, isn't there? And he's you can do that with him because you could just keep hammering, and he doesn't answer the question, like a lot of prime ministers of all parties who are we kidding. But he's just not very good at not answering the question. But I mean, she started out. It was all about you didn't make a statement to Parliament today. You should be making a statement. And then he was asking about NATO troops. It was very interesting. Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, instead of telling off backbenchers for being noisy, he actually told the Prime Minister off, didn't he? What was that about?
He did, and that was there was a bit of a slapdown because Sir Keir Starmer was then accusing the opposition leader of not asking the right questions and not answering things that he wanted to answer. And it's like,
don't you worry about
don't you worry about the opposition questions, you worry about your own. And that slapdown from the Speaker really did rattle Keir Starmer. He became very much like a toddler being told off. He didn't quite know how to deal with it.
Keir
He was
Starmer
quite
never
scared
likes
about
anyone
it.
questioning him at all.
No.
But it sounds like the Speaker's quite annoyed with him because, again, he hasn't given a statement.
Yes.
He's talking about a commitment, and he's saying this is... Well, I don't understand the difference. This is a political commitment rather than an actual... So if there were a ceasefire, we would commit troops. So his argument is he doesn't need to come and give a statement to Parliament. He's saying there would be a statement to Parliament when that's going to happen, and it would be put to a vote in the House of Commons. But Kemi Badenoch was asking about the role that the UK troops would have, and how many answers came there, none.
Yeah, this is apparently a political declaration. I mean, we've just learned this from Keir Starmer. I hadn't seen this anywhere previously. So he's now just admitted that it's nothing more than a piece of paper with some signatures on it.
That's what, isn't that everything that
nothing.
he does?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all hypothetical. It's all totally hypothetical. Yeah. There's no deal. There's keep saying they're at 95% and there are just a few issues to get over, but they're the same issues that have been there since the start of the Ukraine war. Until they get a deal, none of this actually matters. It's all theatre.
Yeah, unless Trump says I'm going to back Ukraine, and unless Putin says well, again, I don't know why it should be up to Putin, who whether there are French and British or American troops in Ukraine. It's up to the Ukrainian people. But as we know, we've got some questions over Donald Trump and his attitude towards Putin on that. In terms of the exchanges about what's going on in Northern Ireland, that was an interesting one, talking about sending troops to war. To a war, as a war zone, even if they're as defensive only. And then Kemi Badenoch talking about these 7 former ex-SAS commanders criticising this Northern Ireland bill, which basically is putting veterans in the dock. Now, can you explain it? You're from Northern Ireland yourself. This is a very, very big issue. It's about often stuff going back decades in the Northern Ireland, the Troubles. But basically, explain why this is such an issue now.
So, 27 years since the Belfast Agreement, this is sort of the last outstanding issue, how to deal with the past. You've got very different Conservative policy saying essentially that there should be equivalence and there shouldn't be any retrospective prosecutions against soldiers.
IRA and other terrorists, all different parties,
but also soldiers.
Basically, you're not going to be prosecuted. People were allowed to come forward, serve like a year behind bars, on the run. You can come out of hiding.
That's part of it. But
veterans, that's not the case.
When it comes to the soldiers, things they did 50 years ago and were told to do, there is the possibility that they could be prosecuted for it now. Some of them did bad stuff they shouldn't have done, but most of them didn't. Most of them followed orders. We're in a situation now where former SAS commanders and former senior army officers and many others as well are saying Labour's new proposed legislation will mean more soldiers in the dock and will mean not just problems for people who served 30, 40, 50 years ago, but people serving now. And it could actually put people off to say, if you go and you're deployed to Ukraine, Afghanistan, wherever, and actually there's a legal redress years later for things you were told to do, well, that's going to put people off.
Yeah, indeed.
And it's unfair.
Yeah, and again, it's the same, I think, with the police officers, when they're armed officers and they're basically, they're trained and they open fire on a tiny handful of occasions they do, and then they face murder charges for doing the job we asked them very bravely to do, Claire.
Yeah, and it's one of those really difficult situations because you can understand from victims and their families, they want justice, who have been killed by British Army. Equally, you have those victims of Sinn Féin terrorist bombs and bombers and kidnappers who also want that justice, and they aren't going to see it because we have made those arrangements already.
And the key point in all of this as well, the army keep records, the terrorists do not.
Yeah,
that's a fundamental part of it.
But also we've got that, it's like in South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. At some point, you have to just say the biggest problem with Ireland, both Republic and Northern Ireland, has been let's all remember something that happened 100 years ago. Yeah. Maybe you just have to say draw a line in the sand and move on.
And that's part of it as well. And some people say that should be the case. There are also families who want to forget it. Say this was all years ago. We don't want to talk about it anymore. And others for whom it is exactly the same today as it was 50 years ago. They want truth. They want justice.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, again, there was also this final exchange about whether or not the Shadow Attorney General, this is Lord Wolfson, it's a role you don't usually hear much about, although we heard a lot about the current Attorney General for the Labour Party, which is Lord Hermer, of course. He's the man who basically is desperate. You thought that Keir Starmer was a human rights lawyer.
Wow. Hold my beer.
Yeah, hold my beer, says Lord Hermer, exactly. But they've had this rather bizarre little spat over, your Shadow Attorney, my Shadow Attorney General's better than your Shadow Attorney General. Let me get my daddy's bigger than yours. It was quite a weird exchange then. And again, I thought very unbecoming.
And also really complicated in regard to who Lord Wilson is. No one cares.
No one knows who anyone knows. No one knows.
And also
no one knows what their job is.
Well, Lord Hermer is in a really, really interesting position at the moment because he's the man who sued numerous governments for illegal rendition. What does he think about Maduro? Has he come out and said anything? He's got plenty of opinions on lots of other human rights issues. On this, he has said absolutely nothing.
Yeah, certainly not publicly, indeed. I must ask you about another development today on the political front, Peter. Now we've got you here, and that is, another day, another Reform press conference, of course. This time, though, an announcement that Layla Cunningham, who's a Westminster councillor for them, regular on this show, regular on this station, very good media performer, that she is going to be their candidate for the London mayoral job. That's going to be not an election, not this local elections in May the 7th this year, but next year. They're giving her a long lead up. She's already made some announcements about wanting to basically take on the trade unions on the tubes to stop those strikes that keep... they haven't done it for quite a while, but certainly for a long time, it was strike after strike after strike. What do you make of that choice, and do you think she's a good option?
I think it's a good choice. She said in September she was thinking about this. Now it's confirmed. They've got a long lead-in time, about a year and a half. Also, Reform UK have a lot of focus on London. They think they can take 6 councils in
Everyone
May.
thinks it's like a really sort of Remainy Liberal Democrat. It's not. The vote is very
also there's the donut effect as well. The inner part of London is quite what you just described there. The outer part, not so much, as we've seen on numerous occasions, not least that by-election where Labour thought they were going to win, and then it didn't go their way. So I think Layla Cunningham is a strong candidate. She's a woman. She's a Muslim. I don't care about either of those things, but some people will.
She was Muslim.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting? I don't care.
Yeah, don't care.
Don't care if she is or she isn't. I really like that not to be an issue.
But getting it out of the gate now, saying this is our decision, this is who the person's going to be, especially as she'll be a big voice when it comes into the local elections this year as well. I think that's a good policy.
We actually are going to get some local elections. Lots of them certainly in the southeast of the country, not happening.
Yeah, lots postponed as well. I mean, I think that's disgraceful. 1 year, maybe we can live with that. 2 years, hold another election now and another one in 2 years. Stop postponing them. Stop denying democracy.
We're told it's actually the Conservatives who might gain the most from this, but you're nodding away to that, Claire Pistol.
Yeah, because places like Hampshire have gone and said that, no, we need to hold them. They've been stopped once and postponed, but no, they need to go ahead. So they've been actually really quite strident with that, and that's Southampton, Hampshire, Romsey and over into Portsmouth and places like that. They're going to hold.
But interestingly, Conservative policy is to say no to this, but already we've had West Sussex and East Sussex saying we're going to go ahead with this because they feel they're back into a corner, but still it's all over the place for the Conservatives specifically.
Right then, are you on later on?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, brilliant. Stay tuned for that after Mr. Peter Carbell, after Ian Collins. Thank you very much. As always, it was great to get you in the studio. Claire Pistol's still with me. We're only going to unlock the door briefly to allow Peter out, then we're going to lock Claire back in. Can't wait to get to your calls and more of your thoughts on what is going on there with this PMQs and what your thoughts, particularly on this. Lots of you getting in touch about this government plan to slash the drink driving limit. Not an issue for you because there are no rules about Diet Coke, Peter.
There aren't, and also I haven't had a drink in 7 years, and it is lonely up here on the moral high ground.
Be off with you. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk, the Home of Common Sense for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Coming up very soon, we're going to be talking to Rupert Darwell about Britain getting locked into EU's net zero rules. That's all we need to say about that. We're also going to be talking about the Reform MP Lee Anderson having a right old go at the BBC. He's no longer paying for a TV licence, as millions are. First up, then, let's get to your calls on those drink driving laws that the government's got a consultation out, which means they're going to do it, particularly limiting the amount you can drink. I mean, it's a whole technical thing, but basically it's under a pint. That's been the new rule. Laura Jane is in Hampshire. Hello, Laura Jane. What do you want to say?
Happy New Year to both of you.
Happy New Year, my darling.
Yes, I live in an area where there is a higher population of elderly people. They rely on their cars just to get down into the village to do their shopping.
And they want to drink lots. No, what? Sorry.
No. They will fall into this category of over 70s having their eyes tested. Yesterday we had a lot of snow, and the day before. Today it's very icy. If any of those elderly ladies or gentlemen try to walk down the hill, there will be a lot of NHS problems with ambulances, hips, operations.
Okay, you can say that, and that would be terrible. However, if they were not safe to drive and they drove, they're then in a big metal box that could kill someone else.
Yes, no, I agree. But what are they going to do to give more help? There are some volunteers who drive people to the shops or to their hospital appointments, etc., but not nearly enough. I live next to a nearly 80-year-old lady. She drives a big, safe Volvo. We go out dog walking sometimes. Yes, she wears glasses, and yes, she will be in that category. But Lord knows, I mean, I know, the good Lord's going to take them at some point, but what are they going to do? It's a bit like the buses.
Okay, I understand that, and that's there again. We don't have enough, of that sort of help for people. But I mean, wearing glasses, there are plenty of people in their, their 20s who wear glasses, but they're safe to drive. The point is, are you safe to drive with your glasses? But we don't want people on the roads, even if it's for their own good. Well, it's not for everyone else's good to have anyone on the roads who actually hasn't got proper eyesight.
But my 60, we're both the same age, we were at school together. My 65-year-old friend opposite me doesn't drive once it gets dark. Yeah. She knows that she's not safe to do that. She feels uncomfortable. She doesn't drive after dark.
I don't like driving after dark.
No, and in the country it's even worse because, believe you me, the roads, the little country lanes, of course. But I'm just saying, what are they going to do?
What are the implications? And again, a lot of the people who make these policies, they live in major cities like London where there are plenty of transport options, but there aren't for large parts of the country. Laura Jane, really good point. Thank you very much indeed. Tony's on the line in Southampton, wants to have his say on the drink driving laws as well. What do you want to say, Tony?
Well, if you go to a virtually zero limit, how long till I can drive after a pint? Can I have a sherry trifle? Can I have a glass of champagne at the wedding? And can I go to the dentist, have mouthwash and drive home?
Well, isn't that the reason why it's not zero? That's one of the reasons why. It's because someone might, someone might have a chocolate liqueur or something on Christmas Day, and then they're unsafe to drive legally.
But they seem to be working towards a zero limit.
Oh, they definitely want it to be a zero limit. But they want it to be a zero limit for drinking full stop. I mean, the people who move on all their stuff, they want us all to just be living on muesli, mate.
Well, I'm a carer. I've got no one else to drive me.
Yep.
I can't go to have a meal with one glass of shandy or whatever and drive home.
Well, you would be able to. That's the whole point. You would be. No, under this law they're proposing, you would be able to.
I think they're trying to get below 1 pint limit.
I mean, but they think it would be underpipe. But again, shandy, half of that's lemonade, isn't it? But I mean,
well,
yeah.
But you can never trust the barman on the actual measure, can you?
I mean, put it this way, they're going to put more lemonade in than they are going to be beer. No, but it's a fair point. And again, I think a lot of the people who make these conversations, they don't perhaps think about most people's real lives. It's a really good point. Tony, thank you for your call. Appreciate that. Going to take a quick break and say that we're going to be talking about net zero. You keep thinking we're going to get away from it. Ed Miliband's doubling down, and yep, so is the EU, and we're going to be doubling down with them if Keir Starmer gets his way. Oh, hooray! That's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is indeed Talk, the home of common sense, and there's certainly no common sense when it comes to net zero. The only way to deal with net zero, as we know, is to get rid of net zero. But that is not what this government is planning to do. And indeed, under a Labour plan, not only will we be carrying on with our mad net zero rules, we'll lock ourselves in with the EU's plans as well. Let's talk about this with Rupert Darwell, who's author of Green Tyranny and a voice of common sense on this. Good afternoon to you, Rupert. Hello, Rupert. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, we've got you there. Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Rupert, tell us what is going on. First of all, what is different between the EU rules and our rules currently, and what is the Labour plan?
Well, the Labour plan is to align Britain totally with Brussels on achieving net zero. So not only are we going to be under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice in terms of getting to net zero, the Labour government is also planning to basically extend the European Emissions Trading Scheme, the ETS, to Britain, which is a form of taxation without representation. So having voted in 2016 to take back control, the Labour government is proposing to surrender control back to Brussels over this critical area.
I mean, it's absolutely mad. And again, because net zero is going so well for both us and indeed the EU, where we are seeing the absolute hollowing out of the German economy, which used to be the industrial base of Europe, because of their mad net zero policies. We're seeing that. But I mean, I know that they had very similar policies on things like, selling of hybrid or petrol diesel cars, and then various dates would change, whether it was 2030, 2035. Weren't they moving towards being a bit more sane on it, because reality has clashed with the ideology, but there's no sign of any of that sense coming from UK, is there?
That's right. I mean, the Germans are very concerned that the compulsory phase out of internal combustion engines will destroy their auto industry. So they're flexing. They've persuaded the European Commission to flex the phase out rules, which the government here is adamant about not doing. I mean, Julie, what's really strange is only a couple of days ago, the Prime Minister was in Berkshire talking about the cost of living crisis. He actually said every minute that we're not talking about the cost of living is a wasted minute. And now he's doing this garbage. Yeah. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up.
This is the thing. I mean, it was really interesting. We had some figures out in the last couple of days about car sales, and they've sold more than 2 million cars. Lots of people basically were waiting to see, whether rules would change, and also just sort of waiting to see what happened in the budget probably. But we've got this ongoing thing where car manufacturers are bizarrely paying, basically underwriting to the tune of often up to 10 grand, people buying more expensive EVs, electric vehicles, because they are legally required to sell a certain percentage of electric vehicles, but people don't want to buy them, so they have to be bribed into buying them, or they are sort of fleet cars, and they're done on a sort of some eco deal. And meanwhile, that money they're actually basically putting on the cost of diesel and petrol cars, so everyone's having to pay more for their cars to fit this bizarre rule where the idea that you actually say to manufacturers, you legally can't sell a certain percentage of cars that people actually want to buy. You have to sell the ones that people don't want to buy. I mean, this is insane stuff.
It is absolutely insane, and it's basically, if you look at the car sales, they're, as you imply, they're bought by fleet buyers, not by your average Joe who've been priced out. Because obviously, if car manufacturers are limited in the number of normal cars they can sell, they'll price them up. They'll sell the luxury models, and they've basically priced out normal people from buying a new car.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? When it comes to things like the heat pumps and stuff like that, and we've seen again and again, our energy bills, which we were told were by Ed Miliband and by Keir Starmer, were going to be going down by £300 under Labour. They've gone up by more than £300. But we've still got, the heat pump legislation. Everything is being slowly watered down. We know that Ed Miliband is an absolute zealot, but we also know that Keir Starmer doesn't believe in anything at all. But Keir Starmer also doesn't want to be ousted as Prime Minister, I don't think it's possible for him to go down further in the polls personally, but for his party to go down further in the polls, as the cost of living issue still bites, unemployment going up, as we're seeing the cost of welfare and the NHS ballooning at a time when we should, as we've been discussing, be spending more on defence and other issues, businesses closing. We are in a really dire financial strait right now. Do you think that he will be willing to throw out a number of the mad, I mean, all the net zero policies are mad and too expensive, but throw out some of the madder, more obvious ones?
No, I think he's completely trapped, and he's trapped, as you imply, by the politics of the Labour Party, because the green stuff is the only thing that they believe in. Ed Miliband is enormously popular within the Labour Party. He's also trapped by the Climate Change Act. And I think it's Section 2, Clause 2, which writes net zero into law. Yeah. So if you try and water anything down, you'll be here. The NGOs will go to the courts, and the Green Blob will go to the courts and force the government to reconsider.
But won't that also be a factor in things like building the third runway at Heathrow and doing anything else? Because actually all the things they want to do, building more homes and more towns. But the reality is you can't build anything if it would have any impact on your ability to achieve net zero by 2050. Now, we're not going to achieve net zero by 2050. I don't believe it's desirable or attainable for us to do that. It's certainly not financially possible. But you can't technically, under that Climate Change Act, do anything, can you?
Well, what the Climate Change Act really does is take power from elected politicians we have elected to make these trade-offs, to make decisions. Every policy objective, there are always trade-offs in policies. And they've taken that power, they have transferred to the courts. And what Starmer's doing by aligning Britain's energy policy with Brussels is transferring power back to the European Court of Justice. Yeah. So we'll end up with the European Commission taking Britain to court. I mean, it is completely insane. And the one thing we can be sure of, it will cost him a lot of votes. It will cost him politically.
But it will also cost us a lot of money. Well, we said that. I mean, again, it might lose a few votes to with the Green Party if he got rid of it, but he might win a lot of votes back. Do you think this is something that is actually being motivated by, look, we really want to get this done, we want to, it's all about net zero, or is this also just part of the whole, let's undo Brexit by the back door and just tie ourselves economically and in every other way with the EU?
I think what we saw with that crazy Egyptian anti-Semite who the government welcomed back was what they called information failures. That Starmer blamed the Foreign Office for not telling about this. Yeah. And net zero is the biggest information failure of all. That it is absolutely true that ministers are not being told the truth. But on the other hand, they don't want to hear the truth. Yeah. That's the other thing.
No one bothers to go looking for it. This is my thing about when I say I always use the word insanity because it is, or madness, because it is not possible to know a single fact on this topic, not even one fact, and not know that this policy is insane.
Well, that's absolutely right. They've persuaded them. The Green Blob has persuaded them, and the civil servants. Let it be said, the civil servants and Ofgem, that renewable power is cheap, and we know that because we've got massive offshore wind, the most in the world. It's the reason why we have the highest electricity bills, highest electricity costs in the world. The politicians don't want to believe. They think it's free. They think the sun and the wind are free.
This is for me. It's just like politicians having to have an IQ test. Whenever I've asked any politician, backbench MPs who vote for a lot of this stuff, they know absolutely. They know net zero about net zero. That's for sure. Rupert Dahl, thank you as always for coming on the show. Author of Green Tyranny. Claire Pearsall, your thoughts on all of this?
I mean, it just highlights the Prime Minister's ever-wishing love to be back in the European Union, doesn't it? Any move that brings us closer to it, he's going to be happy with. His Energy Secretary clearly also believes that, and it'll just make us poorer.
Absolutely. It really is extraordinary, isn't it? It's very interesting how many stories there are at the moment about us sort of realigning with the EU.
It's frightening.
Agri-food and the like. And it is simply so disingenuous, so dishonest.
It really is, and it's frightening that they think they can get away with it.
No. They know they can get away with it.
But can they? I just really want that Brexit uprising to come back again. I really do.
Do you know what though? They were wonderful times.
They were good times.
We came on air first time March 2016. I have to say it was such an extraordinary time. With that referendum, then we had Trump, then we had those battles, and 2019 was just like a full-time job, just trying to keep up on all the attempts to try and stop Brexit.
And you couldn't keep up because then another plot would come up, and then another plot, and then something else. And I do miss that. I do.
Totally up for the fight. As I was saying on the show yesterday, they talk about if we have another referendum, ain't no way we're voting to go back in. No. Oh, can we give up the pound and have the euro? Oh, absolutely. And also looking at the economies of Brexit. The arguments for Brexit are even stronger now today than they were. But also, again, I think people now really understand the absolute unaccountability of our elected representatives, and that's the reason why a lot of people are turning to reform, isn't it? They're saying we want people who are going to actually do what they say they're going to do. And we'll talk a little about that, and we'll get some of your calls up as well in just a couple of moments. We're going to go to a quick break. We're going to take your calls. We're also going to, particularly on drink driving, lots of you getting in touch on that, lots of different views, and we'll talk also a bit more about what's going on with reform. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is still the Home of Common Sense. 12:52 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Claire Pearce also with me. We're going to get to your calls. Lots still coming in on drink driving and those new laws. You're largely not happy with them, it's got to be said. But I also want to tell you here why here at Talk we are welcoming the new year by giving away a massive £26,000. I should put my glasses on, shouldn't I, if I'm going to read this? What better way to kick off 2026 with the chance to win some serious cash? Yeah, 26 grand. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway. Wonder why we came up with the 26. And it could be yours. 26k for 2026. Here's how to enter. For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can call 0343 423 9761. Lines close at 12 p.m. on 9th of January. That's when you'll need to, this year, that's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. It's for UK only and over 18. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 right now, and good luck to you. Right, good luck to you on the calls as well. Chris is on the line in Oxfordshire, wants to have his say on drink driving. A very good afternoon to you, Chris. What do you want to say?
Hello, lovely to hear your dulcet tones back on the airways.
Bless you, sir. Lovely to hear yours. What do you reckon on these new drink driving laws being proposed?
I don't think they'll save a single life. I've reported numerous drink drivers, and I mean not people that have 1 or 2 pints. I'm on about people that will drive after 10 pints. I've reported them, given details of their vehicles, and
at the time as well. Like someone's leaving the pub and and you've called the police, or
no, not at the time. But I've made reports to sort of Crime Stoppers.
Yeah.
But they're all still on the road. And they'll all still be on the road when this law changes. They'll all still be drink driving. Yeah. It won't make any difference.
Yeah, because it does seem that the drink driving issue is, again, people massively over the limit, people completely flouting the law as it is now, and yet there's another law that's going to come in that's going to just make people, people who are basically not really a risk. Although, do you accept, though, that any alcohol at all impairs your ability to react quickly in the event of an accident or someone walking across the road, a kid, a dog or whatever, and actually we shouldn't really be drinking and then getting behind the wheel of a large metal box at high speed?
Yeah, but I mean, there's all sorts of things that can impair you, isn't there? I mean, maybe you didn't have a 100% quality of sleep that you should have had,
maybe you've got
a bit of a headache.
Technically, you won't know if you haven't had enough sleep. Technically, you are in breach of the law because you're not. Yeah. The only accident I've had, I got whiplash injury way years back. I got really over for it. I had very little sleep. I was totally sober, but I know that in terms of the impairment of my driving, I think it was the equivalent of me being a bit drunk, to be honest with you.
But what bothers me is there never seems to be any. It's always just like. Law. Yeah. There's never any sort of like practical solution. Yeah. So instead of saying to people, oh, if you have a drink, you must never get behind the wheel of a car ever again, which seems to be how they go on at the moment, why are we not encouraging people to buy breathalyzers? I've got a breathalyzer.
Then you'd know whether you were and a lot of cars, they say, are now being fitted with them. But the key thing also, since the mid-70s, and it's a result of big changes to cars and braking ability and seatbelts and things, the number of fatal accidents on the roads has fallen by 3/4. When's it going to be good enough for them? I mean, we're going to have to accept there are some risks in life. And most accidents are due to basic drivers or the pedestrians not looking. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
I mean, I'd start arresting people for looking at their mobile phones as they're walking across the road, like, with their heads down. I'd start arresting those people. But there we are. People who don't give a vague indication they're about to cross on a zebra crossing. They suddenly just dart across it when you're driving. Those people. But there we are. Chris, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Mike is in Poole and he wants to have his say as well. What do you want to say, Mike?
Hello, Julia. Great to have you on at a sensible time of the day again, not at the crack of dawn like you used to be.
Thank you.
My
husband enjoys it too.
I called in when you were discussing the appalling case of the two lads that were misidentified.
Awful.
But it brought home to me a thing about the earlier point you made about these young kids all driving cars when they've just passed a test. Now, I was in Northern Ireland recently, and there was a car with a sticker on it, and I forget what it was, it might have been P, and I asked my colleague what that was about, and it was to say these people can't have anybody with them. But, Northern Ireland is still in the United Kingdom, so why haven't we got the same rule here?
Well, because lots of things have devolved. Scotland's got a lower drink driving rule than England and Wales, for instance. It's just devolved. I mean, you know, we're going to be changing to the Scottish rule in terms of drink driving limits. But interestingly, they changed theirs quite some years ago. They've seen no fall in the number of accidents because, of course, the people who are drink driving are doing it anyway, and they're drinking a hell of a lot more than 2 pints.
Of course they are. I'm not don't agree to disagree, but I think your case that you showed where these young lads were driving, and we've all seen it, 3 or 4 young lads driving stupidly because they're trying to show off. That needs to be stopped. And a simple P on the sticker on the back window that if there is a police car, can pull them over, would stop all that.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to have those restrictions again. And if you're caught doing it, your licence goes for 5 years. It's got to be a serious penalty. But again and again, by the way, we are seeing people who are speeding again and again. They've got 12 points on the licence, and they are not being banned from the road. You need to believe you're going to get caught and that you will be punished. That is what stops people committing those crimes. Mike, thank you so much. Really appreciate your kind words as well. Claire Pearce, would you in favour of those tougher rules, but as long as they were actually enforced?
Yeah, I would. I don't trust a bunch of lads, or indeed a bunch of teenage girls in a car together, because it does get loud. People get egged on. The music's awful, and then
mostly it's the loud music that bothers us. But there we are. Here's someone who I'm sure plays very loud music and drives irresponsibly, Mr. Ian Collins.
Absolutely. So I keep being on the train, which is great because I'm absolutely slaughtered right now, so it's absolutely fine.
Explains a lot.
I'm doing no driving whatsoever. It's fantastic.
Do you drive much?
I do.
Do you have to drive to the station?
Yeah, I drive to the station and back, taking the kids around and stuff. But I know somebody fairly recently got done for...
I don't live out, I don't live somewhere without,
Come to the Kent countryside.
Yes.
I'm very, very proud of the way you said that. Thank God she said
that could have gone so wrong.